All right, all of you out there in beautiful land, I'm Ann Vandersteel, and welcome to Steel News. You have now entered the war zone, as I've been saying, because the shit is flying everywhere. You know me, I've been doing this a long time, and the disinfo, misinfo, and purposeful, just outright lies coming from the federal government continues. It's a deafening roar as the deep state rattle just gets louder and louder. We have them cornered like the dead animal that they are. They just don't know they're dead yet. But we are still alive, and we are the king and queens. We're the sovereigns. And you've heard me talking about restoring the republic for years. And it is on like Donkey Kong. I've talked to you guys about the states that are bringing back gold back money, real sound money. I've talked to you about the states that are standing up their republics. Tennessee looks to be pretty hot right now. We're going to get into that, not tonight though, but it's happening. And I'm telling you right now, the world is changing, and all this hullabaloo, the Russia hoax and all this stuff, they're really not the boogeymen, guys. It's our own corporate federal government. So, as I've been saying, the government's really famous for doublespeak, word salads. Just, they use that gobbledygook legal fiction language and their own rules, codes, statutes, and ordinances full of all these kind of funky, strung together letters and acronyms, just basically to terrify us, to basically scare us into submission because we don't know what the hell they're talking about. Well, did you actually know, according to law, you are actually two persons? I think a lot of you people that have been following me for a while know because I've gone on the journey of becoming a state national. I did this journey back in 2021 after I was so sickened by what I saw on January 6th. That's right, I was there for all the trolls that constantly try to get the FBI to apprehend me. I was there just like a lot of people were. Millions of people were there that day. We saw what happened. We saw the corporatocracy rear its ugly head and create a coup d'etat. We're going to break down what person means. We're going to talk about corporations. We're going to talk about how you bust out of the matrix. My guest this evening is a guy that likes to dress up in a pickle costume every now and then. He's kind of a nut, but he's really quite brilliant. His name is Brandon Joe Williams. He's a businessman, musician, ladies' man, definitely, but he's one smart cucumber, and he's figured out what many have already figured out, but have been called conspiracy theorists over this last so many years, over the term sovereign citizen, as he likes to say, which is an oxymoron and it's a misnomer by the FBI. Buckle up, folks. It's about to get real tonight. And let's welcome to the show, Brandon Joe. Brandon, good to have you on.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, man, it's awesome to have you here because I've been studying this for a while, and a good friend of mine who I won't put on blast because I don't think she wants her name out there. Oh no, she had you on the show. What am I saying? Dr. Jane Ruby said you've got to check this guy out. And I was talking to her about, how you become sovereign and just, reject the legal corporate fiction, or at least take control of it. All jurists of law. And she looked into you and you resonated with her. And I was like, I never heard of the dude. So I started following your course. And I was like, I just love the way you present the material. So I wanted to have you on and run through this because my audiences watch me go and get my passport, 4 stars. I didn't get the 5, but we're going to talk about that also. And, the federal government now recognizes me as a national and not as a U.S. citizen. And I'm actually really happy about that. So thank you for shining a big light on this and bringing more people along on the journey.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get into it because I want to kind of treat this conversation sort of like there's people out there that just don't know the basics. So when people hear you're an American state national and you're not a U.S. citizen, they kind of go, whoa, what exactly does that mean? So let's just start by breaking down what a citizen is versus a national. Can you help us out with that?
Sure. Can I do a screen share on this? Is that possible?
You can't, unfortunately. I this StreamYard, I don't know how to make that happen. I don't know if it's because I don't have the right level, but I do have a lot of assets I can show.
I'm going to try it if you wouldn't mind.
And go for it. If you can do it, freaking go for it.
Because I don't like talking about things without showing it. And
I
think that's
I'm with you.
The biggest issue in all the things, all the people teaching this information, they all mean well and they're all fantastic. Yeah. But they talk and they don't show. And I think that is a huge issue.
Yep. I'm with you on that.
I just did a screen share. I can see that it's live in the background. I think you just have to pull it up.
Got it.
Wow, look at that. Boom.
Oh, that's me. Oh no, I grabbed the wrong one. Okay, that's you. Let's get that off. Okay.
Can you see me?
Your screen share is good to go. Yeah. Awesome, man.
Okay. So I have a whole presentation on this. It's pretty clear. So the first thing I do is I just teach people how to look up laws. It's really simple.
Yeah.
So the U.S. code is the one that's most typically referenced in almost everything. And if you go to Cornell Law, which is my favorite because they have clickable special definitions and it's just easier to read than a lot of the other sites, just the font and it's black on white and that kind of thing. If you look at the different titles, they have different names, so you can see all different titles and stuff. And aliens and nationality is a big one for what we do, which is Title 8. Agriculture is Title 7, and so on and so forth, right? So whenever you see a string of law like this, the first number always represents the title, Title 28, and then the second part is the body of law of which that we're looking at, which is the United States Code. You also have the Code of Federal Regulations. You also have the Uniform Commercial Code. You have different bodies, right? So this is the body that we're looking at. This is a section symbol, and this just means section. That's all it means. And this is the section number. So the way you would read this is Title 28 USC Section 3002. Okay, and we're going to go down to subsection 15.
My favorite.
And yeah, we're going to look at what is the definition of the term United States.
Right.
So United States means a federal corporation. And depending on where we're going to go in this show and how much time we have, it's very important to notice. Okay, perfect. It's important to notice that the F is capitalized, which does have importance. It's a little bit complicated. We're not going to get into it quite yet, but it is important just to note that the F is capitalized. Okay.
Right.
And then the next thing we're going to look at is a different body of law called actually, we'll go to the definition of the word person first, even though I think a lot of your people might know. It's always good to review.
Yep.
So the one that I like the most, there's many different definitions. The one I like the most, I think it's not too vague and it's not too crazy. It's actually pretty much in the middle. You'll see a lot more vague definitions. You'll see a lot more complicated definitions. The most complicated one is actually in the transportation code. That one goes on and on and on, and it includes railroads, and it's like really crazy. It's like, actually, I've never seen anyone read the definition of person from the transportation code and not laugh. It's just like, it's literally comical. Okay, so this one is.
Can I just ask you, do you think they do this just to get us to yawn and go what and just not read it because it's just so your eyes glaze over? I mean, they really don't want us to know this.
From my experience, and I know, from my experience, just to be totally honest with you, even the government doesn't know any of this shit.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a fact. That's a fact.
So,
I talk to
I know
people all the time. They have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm like, really?
Yes. Sure, so I know at the beginning when you were introducing the show, I just, at first I thought they knew a lot of this, and over the past 2.5 years, I've become thoroughly, and when I say thoroughly, I mean thoroughly disabused of the idea that anybody in the government, even people all the way at the very, very top of entire passport facilities, like the downtown LA passport facility, does not know who is entitled to a passport and that non-citizen nationals are entitled to a passport. And it's literally in the US code in black and white. And it's the simplest thing in the world. And no one knows any of this information at all. So that's the major issue is not intent. And the major issue is complete ignorance. Complete.
Yeah.
The definition of the word person is probably the only thing that's starting to kind of become more well known.
Yeah.
I think because so many people are talking about it right now. Besides this, almost everything else I'm going to show you is completely unknown by literally almost everyone in the whole country. So with that said, the definition of the word person, and this comes from the tax code, which is Title 26. 26 is the Internal Revenue Code, okay, which I know some people are like, well, that's not even part of the government, blah, blah, blah. Fine. I'm just using this definition because I think it's a really good mid-range definition, meaning it's not too vague. We're going to look at the Title 8 definition as well. It's way more vague. And then you have extreme, like in the transportation code, where it goes on and on and on and on and on. And it's like absolutely hilarious. So this is like a nice middle ground. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. Now, if we go back to the definition of United States, and we see that United States means a federal corporation, that means that United States is a person.
Right.
And you can see that in any criminal case where you have United States versus John Doe. You'll see right in the jurisdiction and venue section of the complaint, you'll see it usually will talk about how the definition of the word person and how United States is a person. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not some wild-eyed craziness. You can go right on Pacer. If anyone wants to get into this, we're not going to get into this right now, but if anybody wants to go and look up all court cases, all federal court cases can all be found. You can create a free account here, and it's 10 cents per page. You can search for a case by name, by court. You could look up all. I encourage all of my followers. I have a lot of followers. I encourage them all to get a Pacer account and download everything off of every case. Go into the Wesley Snipes case. Wesley Snipes case, the first one, not the appeals case, has 602 filings into the docket. There's a lot you can read, and it's all at your fingertips for a very small cost. And I can go over more of that later in the show. So we have this person called United States. Okay. Now the first question is, where is this person located? And we're going to find the location of that person in a different body of law called the Uniform Commercial Code. This one operates a little differently, but it's the same thing. So this first number is the article, which is the same thing as saying title for United States Code. Article 9, Section 307. That's how you read that.
This is in the UCC, right?
This is the UCC, right? Now we're going to go down to subsection H, okay? And just real quick, it says here location of debtor, and what they're referring to is in relation to the Federal Reserve, and they're referring in relation to Federal Reserve notes is what they're talking about specifically on this, because you can see the word debtor used here. That's why they're referring to location of the debtor, which is a person known as United States. So we're going to find out where is that debtor or that person located. Subsection H, location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Now, the first logical question is, okay, where? Where in the District of Columbia? If the District of Columbia is like a country and United States is a state within that country, what is the size and location of that state? And I've done a lot of research. I've dug through a lot of court cases and stuff. I've never actually found anywhere where they specifically and explicitly locate using, let's say, meets and bounds or coordinates, the exact boundary location of the person called United States. So as far as I'm concerned, at this point in my research, United States does not have a specific location within the District of Columbia. It's somewhere in the District of Columbia. We don't know where. For example, a lot of the people going into the J6 stuff, let's say, for example, they said, because I have friends even who were arrested because of that, because I know you mentioned that at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Let's say, for example, they said that you were in the United States when you were there. Well, that's a very easy thing to contend, because the thing is that, yes, the United States is located in the District of Columbia. But the thing is that you would place the burden of proof on the prosecution, such as the FBI or whoever's arrested you, to prove that United States, the meets and bounds or coordinate location of this person, is within the coordinate location of where you were physically located when you were there for J6.
There is no such animal.
I don't think they'd be able to do that. I think that you would be placing an impossibility on their doorstep, and if they can't prove that, they wouldn't have a case.
I can actually I can support that theory, Brandon. The reason I can is because I attended several J6 trials. One of them was for Coy Griffin. He's the Cowboys for Trump guy, good friend of mine. And they actually had a Secret Service, guy testifying, as well as a Capitol Police officer testifying. And they were there to determine what was considered crossing, the restricted area. And neither one of those two agents of the government could actually tell you what was the restricted area. Heck, I couldn't tell you what the restricted area was when I'm standing on the plaza because there was no demarcation. By the time I got there, if there was any boundaries, they were all taken down. So I hear what you're saying, but you're talking about getting an actual physical meets and bounds, which is your, lat launch sort of speak
Yes.
for to give more technical definition of a property line versus just, the address, which is not very technical. I've looked for that because I've listened to your course and I have looked and looked and looked and I can't find any lat longe, any sort of meets and bounds that would describe the United States in the District of Columbia. So you can only assume it's the full 10 square miles. But what is that? Right?
You can't assume that though, because
No, I'm
there's
sorry. Right. Bad choice. Yeah.
can't
But
assume
yeah,
that, because the thing is because it's located in does not mean it takes up the entire landmass
higher.
of the District of Columbia.
Correct. So
Because
is
it's
that
just
by
like
design or
it's like saying the United States of America, which everyone thinks of as this whole kind of big thing
law?
with all the 50 states in it, right?
Right.
It's like saying it's the same thing. If you said California, location of California, California is located in the United States of America. That doesn't assume that California is the size of this entire thing called the United States of America. It's just that it's located in, but it does not specify where or how large that thing is. Do you see?
Right. Right.
So you have
Right.
to be very, very careful with the wording on all this stuff. And this is what the bar cards, I call them the bar cards. This is what bar cards do. They do the opposite of what we're doing right now. We're trying to clarify this in a healthy way. They try to confuse all this in a toxic way. It's the
Of
same
course.
behavior. Okay. So what we're looking at here is location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia, and we're going to talk a lot about how residency is established and how domicile is established and the location of states and corporate states, and we can get into all that today. But I just want to not get into
Yeah.
that quite yet, because I think there's some other things that need to be gone over first. So the next thing I typically go over is the definition of the term United States citizen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which the one I like, the one that I think fits pretty well is 42 USC 9102. And you scroll down to subsection 18. And we have United States citizen means. Now, the first thing I typically show people on this that they find very fascinating is if we go back to the definition of the term person, the term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. You have an interesting question that some people who are very intelligent ask, which is, well, if that's the case, then can a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation be a United States citizen? And the answer is yes, and the proof is right here in subsection C. United States citizen means, and we're going to skip to subsection C, any corporation, partnership, association, or other entity organized or existing under the laws of the United States.
Would this be why you never want to have a statutory trust and you would only want to have common law trust so you're outside the jurisdiction of being a U.S. citizen?
It's up to you. I don't ever tell anyone what to do, because the thing is that there might be real reasons. For example, access to credit, which is a whole nother subject. But
Mm-hmm.
access to credit, if you wanted access to, let's say, business credit, then that business would need to be a U.S. citizen, typically.
Right. Right.
But so there's it's all optional. That's basically the way I teach everything is optional and everything is voluntary. All I do is just show the definitions and show the information, and then the choices of what you do with that information is entirely up to you, not for any legal purpose. I don't live in the United States, so I don't fall under these silly things like practicing law or giving legal advice and all these ridiculous things that people say, oh, this is for educational purposes only. I don't give a shit if this is for educational purposes or not. That has nothing
Right.
to do with me. I operate the way that I do specifically and explicitly because I don't feel like it's my job to tell you or anyone else what to do with this information. It just
Right.
isn't. I feel it's
Yeah.
almost like I almost feel like it's a transgression against the free will of other individuals to do that. So I just don't do it. It's a moral policy or an ethical policy that I have. It has nothing to do with the legal world at all, just to be clear.
Right.
So with that said, subsection C, any corporation. So we have those are all can be United States citizens if they're organized or existing under the laws of, which is totally optional. If you'd like to have your entity organized or existing under the laws of, and you can even have a non-statutory trust, and you can move that non-statutory trust to make it to where it is organized under the laws of the United States, and then now it becomes a United States citizen. So that's a whole nother subject, but. Now we're going to move on to subsection A. We have any individual who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. That's the definition that is most common, what people think of when they think of a United States citizen being a man or a woman, live thing walking around. So by law means by contract. By birth means born inside of, which again, that can include trusts, estates, partnerships, associations, companies, corporations, right? I don't really think that either of those are really all that important. I think what really matters and what really is the thing that everyone should be focusing on is the term naturalization.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most powerful and craziest and wildest thing I have ever found in all of my research to date is the term naturalization. Okay, now we're going to find the definition of naturalization over in Title 8, which is all about aliens and nationality. We're going to go to 8 USC 1101 subsection A 23. And this is like hold on to your hats kind of a deal. This is about ready to blow your hair right out of your skull.
Yeah.
The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever.
Yep.
And
That's
this is, we're going to break this down word by word because this one definition is access to never pay taxes again, never have a driver's license, infinite money. I mean, this definition is the gateway into literally freedom that you never ever would have even imagined in your wildest dreams. Okay. So the first thing we have to break down on this is the word state. Most people think the word state means one of the 50 states. That's actually not at all what it means. And I have some things called on my website that we can go and look at real quick. And if you look at the definition of the word state, let me see if I have it here. No, let me just look at one more spot. Where is it? State. Here we go. So state, in its largest sense, a state is a body politic or society of men. And you start looking at those and body politic, you start looking at that one, it doesn't really go anywhere. And then you start looking at, well, body politic says that it could be a nation. So then I realized that the word state, the word body politic, the word society, and the word nation kind of all mean the same thing. So I started looking at different definitions of the word nation, trying to find something that made sense. And then bingo, I found the gold of all gold. This definition blew this whole subject of naturalization wide open. And this is the definition of the word nation or state or society or body politic. You know, all four of those terms or words are this definition here. An independent body politic, a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by the joint efforts of their combined strength. But every combination of men who govern themselves independently of all others will not be considered a nation. A body of pirates, for example, who govern themselves are not a nation. To constitute a nation, another ingredient is required. The body thus formed must respect other nations in general and each of their members in particular. Such a society has her affairs and her interests. She deliberates and takes resolutions in common, thus becoming a moral person who possesses an understanding and will peculiar to herself and is susceptible of obligations and rights. Now, what this means in super simple English terms is it's the same thing as how all these millions or trillions or whatever of cells all come together to form this thing that operates as a single unit called the human body. It's the exact same thing. And I actually believe that the definition of the word nation and the definition of the word person both come from that idea of cells forming the human body. Personally, that's my own personal opinion. So what is a nation? It's a bunch of individuals who operate together. It has nothing to do with territory or location. It's just minds coming together and operating as a single mind together. They have good internal relations and internal tranquility, and they share tranquility and help externally. That is the legal definition of the word state or nation. And it also shows you where the definition of the word person came into play when they added things like trusts and associations and partnerships and estates and companies and corporations. All those things are all basically nations because they are groups of individuals operating together. And that's also why, and we can get into this more later, this is also why metes and bounds and coordinates after about 1871, you started seeing that exiting a lot of the laws and a lot of the residency laws. And the reason why is because it has nothing to do with metes and bounds. It has nothing to do with coordinates. It has nothing to do with location or territory or land at all. It's completely fictional. And the fictional world has essentially been born out of all of these ideas,
which runs in parallel with the fact that God created man, man created government, and we created corporations. Right? That was we gave birth to fiction to manage our affairs.
Trusts are a little bit more complicated because there were trusts before incorporation. And if you go to a bank and open up a bank account and you say you have a trust, they are supposed to, they don't because they don't understand any of this. They're supposed to ask you if it's statutory or non-statutory. Statutory means that it's a business and it's plugged into this whole system. Non-statutory would be like basically what trusts were before 1871.
Right.
So trusts are a little bit different. Everything else, yes, was born out of this whole idea. If you go back in time, everything was a trade organization back before 1871, which just meant nothing really. That's like saying business in 1850. You'd say trade organization. Okay.
Right. Well, I like your definition of trust, right? Right now we're creating a trust relationship. I'm the beneficiary. My audience is the beneficiary of you, the trustee, disseminating this information. And it's up to the beneficiary to decide how they want to apply it, if they want to use it or not. It's for their benefit.
That's correct.
Yeah, this is a trust action that we're engaged in right now, and I think you've explained that very well in your free, kill the contract killer course. It's awesome.
Thank you. So the next part of this, that's state. So state, nation. I usually just replace the word state and put the word nation in there, and it makes a lot more sense. Then we move on, and we have the word person here. We stop the train. We have the word person. So what is the definition of the word person in Title 8? Because we're in Title 8 now. This is much more vague and much more simple. The term person means an individual or an organization. And if you go back to this whole section, you can actually find the definition of the word organization. Let's see here. So that definition, there's actually a definition of that in the definition.
Right.
If we go down here, we're going to find that definition. Let me give me just a moment here.
Now, I'm impressed you've learned how to use the find feature.
Well, it didn't work in the course. People are always like, "Oh, you should use the find feature." You can't do this in Black's Law. People are so stupid.
That's right. That's true. Black's Law, you can. Well, I don't know. I downloaded the PDF, and on my Mac, I was able to do a find feature in Black's Law.
You can do it, but it's like, okay, let's say there's like a Latin term, like ens legis. You can do that.
Yeah.
But if you do organization, I mean, you might as well. It's going to take you longer to use the find feature.
That's a common word. Yeah, no,
that's what I mean. So it just depends. So here is the specialized.
We love the singing. When you were looking for things and singing, we enjoyed that. I was kind of hoping you'd bring some of that tonight. I'm just kidding. Do whatever you want to do.
We'll see. I might. You never know. You never know when I'll break out into.
Don't you want to be an organization? Sorry.
So it's okay.
So for those of you that don't know about the cucumber, and you're in for a rude awakening, but it's all good. You're going to learn something here. Go ahead, Brandon.
On these shows, I usually just because it takes so damn long to get through this, I usually just, pound it, and I usually don't crack jokes and do all the goofy stuff that I do in a lot of my other
No,
material
it's
you'll
all
see on
good.
our
It's
website.
good. No, I'm glad you're pounding it. This is really critical. This is critical information. Honestly, it is. We're at a precipice right now as a nation, and the Republic is on life support. If
Yeah.
if it's even still plugged in at this point, we can bring it back though.
Oh, yeah. So the term organization means, and it's funny here, look at this, but is not limited to, so you can see how vague it is. An organization, company, corporation, partnership, association, trust, foundation, or fund, and includes a group of persons, whether or not incorporated, permanently or temporarily associated together with joint action on any subject or subjects. So you can see here that people are like, well, how do I create a group, and how do I create a 508c1a, and how do I create a nonprofit, and how do I create a trust, and how do I? Well, technically speaking, if you take the definition of the word organization from Title 8, it's a pure, super pure definition. And I know a lot of people hate all this stuff and they think it's so evil and so bad, but actually, if you look at this definition, it's so empowering, in fact, that it's actually mind-boggling. Because what it's saying is that you have an organization. Just if you and your buddies get together on Sunday nights and talk about lawnmowers, you've got an organization.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to incorporate it at all. Incorporated means you plug it into the matrix.
Right.
It doesn't need to be plugged in at all. It's got nothing
Right.
to do with anything when it comes to Title 8. And you'll see how important that is as we go forward on this. So we're going to go back to naturalization. And so the word person, what I typically do when I do these presentations is I'll replace the word person with an individual or an organization. So if we reread this now, and I replace the word state with the word nation, and I replace the word person with the definition, the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a nation upon an individual or an organization after birth by any means whatsoever.
Wow.
So
Means
so
a whole
my
lot more, doesn't it?
yeah, so my theory on this, and I don't really think it's a theory, but I say it's a theory, just to be, I don't know why. I think it's factual, objective information. The only way that you can be located in an unlocatable place is through naturalization. The only way you can be in the United States is by saying you are in the United States. There is absolutely no other possible way for that thing to take place. Being a U.S. citizen is physically impossible unless you say you are a U.S. citizen,
Right.
which is a beautiful thing in a way too, because naturalization is how you got into this whole mess. And when you understand what naturalization means, it is by far, in my opinion, the most powerful thing. If you get pulled over on the side of the road and the police officer says, where do you live or where are you at? He has to establish residency to get you under the California Vehicle Code or whatever. When you tell the officer, oh, no, officer, I'm not a resident of any of the 50 states. I actually live in Antarctica. You're not lying to the officer. You're actually naturalizing live right there in front of the officer. Now, it gets even more crazy. If the officer says that you do domicile or are a resident of the state of California, he doesn't realize that he's attempting to naturalize you.
Right.
It doesn't say conferring of nationality of a state upon yourself or a corporation that you control. It just says the conferring of nationality of a state upon anyone or anything by any means whatsoever.
Right.
So let's say you could literally be in a court case with Starbucks Incorporated, and you could confer the nationality of a state that people know, or even a made-up state. You could say the secondary Republic of Madagascar, and you can confer the nationality of that state upon the person called Starbucks Incorporated. If they don't specifically negate that assumption, they have now legally naturalized into the state called the Second Republic of Madagascar. Whatever I said.
Mm-hmm.
So naturalization is so open and it's so vague and it's so freeing that anyone can naturalize anyone or anything, thing being defined as any organization, into any place or anything or any group, or really even something that doesn't really have a location, because nation doesn't necessarily have a location, by any means whatsoever. So when you start to understand how this works, if a trust or an organization or a company or a corporation or an estate or a partnership, if these things are all persons, and you can move that person by conferring the nationality of a state on it by any means whatsoever, then you need to realize that I think of it like a monopoly board. I know how to put together a trust. It's very easy. I could put together probably 600 trusts in like 3 or 4 days if I really, really needed to. So if I had 600 trusts, I can move all of those trusts around through naturalization as many times as I wanted and as often as I wanted. You could naturalize, a person 500,000 times a day. You could move it to France and then to Italy, and then you could make up something. Say it's in heaven. Say, not to say that heaven's made up, but I'm just you could make up something like Scrimmlebuff. I confer the nationality of Squeamlebuff upon my trust. That trust is instantaneously transported to Squeamlebuff. And you say to yourself, where is Squeamlebuff? That's an irrelevant question. You would say, objection, irrelevant. Because the thing is that it has nothing to do with a physical location.
Right. I have a question. I'm going to interject this real quick. I'm going to share this over here. This is the definition of the 14th Amendment, which I contest really put a crown of thorns on everybody, making everybody U.S. citizens. But what you're saying is by definition, and we could talk about the 14th and how that was unconstitutionally ratified. I've beat that dead horse many times on my platform. But that being said, what you're saying right now is that the 14th Amendment is fairly, I don't want to say irrelevant, because if you can, but it is, you can become whatever you want. You can naturalize to whatever you want. So therefore, this sort of makes the 14th irrelevant based on what you're talking about in terms of the definition of by any means whatsoever, you can confer a nationality on yourself. Be a U.S. citizen today and a Madagascar tomorrow, or in 5 minutes from now, or whatever.
That's precisely correct. So what the 14th Amendment did is it created an entirely new incorporated system or country or state called United States.
Right.
And a United States citizen is somebody who has conferred the nationality. Well, that's actually let's hold off on that for a moment, because that's actually a bigger conversation. So let's I'm going to continue where we left off. Is my screen back on here now?
Yeah, I give it back. Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want to jump. I want to go bite size by bite size, because we're going to get it's overwhelming.
You're making my brain work, so I just
yeah. So this is the most important thing ever. I think for probably 60 days, when I learned about the definition of naturalization, I was walking around in a complete daze, a tizzy. I don't even think I rode my motorcycle very much during that time period, because I just didn't think I had enough attention units to really focus. This has been the craziest, biggest, gnarliest thing I've ever found to date, and I found a lot of crazy things, let me tell you. But for all intents and purposes, this, if you're looking for freedom and you're looking for true American heart and soul, pre-Civil War, pre-1860, true original America, this is it. I mean, naturalization is you are whatever or wherever you are, literally whenever you say you are. And you become literally a gas or a ghost, and no one can touch you. No one can sue you. I mean, literally, you become untaxable, ungovernable. The term naturalization literally transports you back to America circa 1776.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion. I mean, there's a lot more information. We're going to get into this.
I agree. I mean, you have dissected the word salad through the U.S. codes, the UCC, and it's quite impressive, because you've linked a lot of things that are just sort of placed all over the place. But when you string them together and you take their definitions and apply them the way they have defined them, you start to understand we aren't what we think we are. So
Whatever you say you are, and wherever you say that thing is, whatever that thing is, if it's an organization that operates as one person or if it's an individual person filled with cells, and either way. And the other thing that's pretty cool is you can make as many persons as you want. So let's say, for example, one of my trusts get sued. They're non-statutory. I'll make 600 more. You don't know where the assets went. Those assets will be gone in 3 seconds. You'll never find them. And I'll scatter the nationality of all those trusts all over the planet in like 48 hours. You could suing me is the biggest waste of time. You'll notice in all my lawsuits that I file, no one ever fucking counterclaims me. No one ever sues me, nothing ever. And I think it's because people realize suing me, I am by far on the planet probably the hardest person you could ever litigate against. Not to be egotistical, but there's no way. I'll be dead and you won't even be 1 millimeter towards my assets. You won't even be on the 1 yard line. So, anyways, so when you start to really understand how this works, asset protection and taxation and stuff, I mean, it becomes a fucking joke to the point where you don't even need to hire anybody. There's no point. You know what I mean? No, none of these attorneys, none of these accountants, none of these people at the immigration office know any of this information.
What a blessing.
So taking the term naturalization now, we can start getting into the term national, because now we have enough information to start understanding what this whole movement's all about. We needed all that information we've gone over so far to start to get into this. The term national comes from, and it's literally right here in the United States Code, Title 8, Section 1101, subsection A21. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not designed by some God knows what. Title 8 is old. This is information from, I think the last time Title 8 was changed or adjusted was like 1952. And that's because the INA, the Something Nationality Act, was passed. But this information we're going to cover even comes from before that. It was just in a different structure, but it's the same terminology, basically, right? This old stuff, nothing new. The term national means a person owing permanent allegiance to a state. It's super, 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 super simple, okay? Now, again, we're going to go through all the words here. We already got state down, locked down. It's nation. Right. Permanent is a funny one. This one always gets people laughing. So click on permanent. That's what I like about Cornell laws. You can click on the damn thing. Otherwise, you wouldn't know. If you go on other websites, this is all just black text. You'd have no idea that there's a special definition of person and there's a special definition of permanent. It's very, very useful, very, very helpful. So the term permanent is a laughable joke, right? The term permanent means a relationship of continuing or lasting nature as distinguished from temporary, but a relationship may be permanent even though it is one that may be dissolved eventually at the instance either of the United States or of the individual in accordance with law. It means literally nothing. And people get very caught up on this word. So because the word is an oxymoron, we just delete it from the definition. It has no meaning. It literally has no meaning. So if we were to reread this, I'm going to replace the word person with the definition. I'm going to remove the word permanent, and I'm going to replace the word state with the word nation. And you're going to start to really see what is a national. Now, mind you, the word national is also not capitalized. It is not a proper noun. The term national means an individual or an organization owing allegiance to a nation. It couldn't get any simpler. And how do you owe allegiance? You pledge allegiance. A national is somebody who has pledged allegiance to a group.
Right.
That is the definition of the word national. Now, I know there's a lot of ideas and a lot of crazy things, and we're going to get into all that, but I like to start here because we need there's so much confusion on this subject. This is the simplicity of it. It's any individual or organization, whether incorporated or not, doesn't make any difference. Any group of individuals operating as a single unit or an individual who has pledged allegiance to any nation, whether it's it could be an internet Call of Duty clan that you play with your buddies and you have your little HTH little tag name at the end of your username. It could be your job. It could be your family. Like, for example, in Scotland, if you go up in the hills and stuff, you'll see they still have coat of arms and crests for family names. That's because family names and family trees and families are by definition nations. And if you are born into the family and you pledge allegiance to the family, that's why they have coat of arms, because that coat of arms represents the nation of the family of Williams. It's literally an entire nation, and the coat of arms represents that nation. Okay. And that's still the same way America works. It's the same way this is what we're looking at right now. Is we're not looking at the funny thing about Title VIII and a lot of what we're studying here on this show is that this is not domestic law we're looking at. This is actually international law. We are currently studying international law, which is a very, very interesting thing to realize. Okay. So now that we know that the term national means literally just pledging allegiance to a nation, how do you become a national of the United States, or what would be considered a non-citizen national, right? Now we're going to go to the I-9 form just to prove that this is not a conspiracy theory. The I-9 employment eligibility verification form. If we go to the I-9, which you fill these out when you go get a new job, box 1 is a citizen of the United States. Box 2 is a non-citizen national of the United States.
Right.
You'll see that all over. You'll see it on gun purchasing forms. You'll see the word national. Now the word national is again, we have to pump the brakes because there's more than what people think, and it's simpler than what people think. People have all these different ideas. So it's very, very simple. This is defined in the same section. We have 21 as national, 22 is national of the United States, and 23 is naturalization. This area right here is probably the most powerful, tiny little section I've ever found in all of my research ever.
And this is under the main subsection of which title?
8 USC 1101, subsection A, 21, 22, and 23. So going on to A22 of 8 USC 1101.
Right.
The term national of the United States. Now we're just going to stop right there. National of the United States. So if you were to translate that terminology into normal English using the previous definitions, it would be a individual or an organization who has pledged allegiance to the corporation found in the District of Columbia called United States.
Right.
That's what national of the United States means literally, but we're going to get into obviously the definition they have here. So national of the United States has two definitions. Definition A is a citizen of the United States. Citizen basically means employee or officer of the government, by the way.
Correct.
Definition B is a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. When they say non-citizen national of the United States on the I-9 form, they are referring only to the definition in subsection B of 8 USC 1101 subsection A22.
Right.
So the way you could, if you say the term U.S. national, it could be A or B. If you say the term national of the United States, that could mean A or B. But when you say non-citizen national of the United States, that can only mean B.
Right.
So that's why it's important. The terminology is very important. If you say U.S. national, well, that could mean citizen. If you say national of the United States, well, that could mean citizen, maybe. There's room for assumptions. When you say non-citizen national of the United States, there's no room for assumptions. They can't hit you. They can't trick you. They can't get that leg in that bear trap. It's physically impossible. So I like to go through these as if they're life and death. Obviously, you can tell, because they are, in my opinion, right? So I don't use the term U.S. national or national of the United States. I only use the term non-citizen national of the United States. I
Right.
don't ever want anyone to think there's a possibility that definition A applies to myself or my trusts. Okay.
Right.
Now, moving on from that, we're going to start getting some more information in terms of passports. 22 Code of Federal Regulations, Section 51.2 tells you very, very clearly, and even the Passport Office does not know this. The Passport Office believes that only U.S. citizens are entitled to a passport. That is completely insane and totally false. And if you sue the Department of State, you will win. It's very easy. It's very clear. A passport.
May I just interrupt you really quickly, because so many people argue with me over this, as they say, well, your passport looks just like mine and I'm a US citizen. I said, yeah, it does look just like yours. And in the passport, it's very clear with this paragraph where it basically says, the Secretary of State of the United States of America hereby requests all whom it may concern to permit the citizen slash national
Correct.
blah blah blah. So it obviously it recognizes either you're a citizen or a national. I'm a national, you're a national, millions are nationals. Continue.
They've made it more vague over the years. If you go back
Sure.
100 years and you look at the passport application form, they actually had check boxes, and you could actually check the box called state citizen, or you could check the box called U.S. citizen, which we'll get into that a little bit later in the conversation, because I like to start from the beginning on how that all started and go through the history of that a little bit before just jumping right into that, because it doesn't make any sense to people, right? So, but here we have a passport may be issued only to a U.S. national. Now, what are the two things that a U.S. national could be? You know?
I'm sorry, you're asking me a question. What are the two things a U.S. national could be?
Yeah, according to this, what we're looking at right now.
A U.S. national could be somebody who claims to be in the District of Columbia in the United States, or not in the District of Columbia.
Yeah, but according to what we just read in 8 U.S.C. 1101 subsection A22, what are the two things that a U.S. national could be?
They could be, I guess, a state citizen or a U.S. citizen.
Yeah, I mean, that's
not a citizen, or not a citizen. I said non-citizen. I'm a non-citizen, basically,
yeah.
as a U.S. national.
So again, I know this is very confusing. That's why I'm asking this question. So the term U.S. national and the term national of the United States is the same thing. So a U.S. national or a national of the United States means A, a citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United
Right.
States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. And permanent doesn't have any meaning. So we just, that doesn't mean anything.
Right.
So if we translate this over to 22 CFR 51.2, a passport may be issued only to a citizen of the United States or a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States.
Right.
And it's so funny because I have people who freak out. No, that's not true. This is all bullshit. And then I pull up this fucking bomb, 22 U.S.C. 212, and it literally says that verbatim. Right. Persons entitled to passport, no passport shall be granted or issued to or verified for any other persons than those owing allegiance, whether citizens or not, to the United States. Now look at the year on this reference. Look how old this is.
Yeah.
We are not talking about anything. So the INA, the whatever
Immigration and Nationalization Administration.
That one came out, I think it was around 1952. So this is, even though we have this huge shift that occurred in Title VIII in the 50s or whatever it was, we are talking about information that is even older than the INA. We are talking about very freaking old information. This is not anything new. This did not happen because of Biden. This is old. This is super, super old. This goes back to 1871, which we're going to get into later in the presentation. Okay. So now going back to this, right? So now what do we have? We have the idea that, so, okay, this is a good part to go to the 14th Amendment, right? So what occurred during the 14th Amendment is there was slaves, and they were being
Emancipated.
they were being emancipated, and a lot of people didn't want the slaves to have the full rights of all the people that were in what's called the several states. Okay. So what happened is they came to a middle ground, and that's what the 14th Amendment was all about, right? And that middle ground was they were going to create this thing called a federal U.S. citizen, and that federal U.S. citizen was only going to have civil rights, and it was going to have very few rights, and basically they were going to move all of the released slaves into this brand new category called the federal U.S. citizenship category. And at that point in time, there was some confusion, and there was a series of cases called the slaughterhouse cases that went all the way to Supreme Court. And you can literally type this into Google, and right off of Google, you will see that the slaughterhouse cases was a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision which ruled that the privileges or immunities clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution only protects the legal rights that are associated with federal U.S. citizenship, not those that pertain to state citizenship. So what occurred is the 14th Amendment, people were still a bit confused. It wasn't until the slaughterhouse cases when it was completely and fully established that there's actually two types of citizenship. There's the federal U.S. citizenship, which has to do with the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia was born at this exact same time period.
Right.
Versus state citizenship, which is being in a state. Now, what's crazy is the original Constitution of the United States of America only applies to state citizenship. It does not apply to federal U.S. citizenship. And when you go down the rabbit hole of what rights, so they say here that the 14th Amendment only protects the legal rights that are associated with federal U.S. citizenship. Well, what's the, and this is going to take me a while to find it and dig it up, but if you dig, you'll find this. What is the legal rights associated with federal U.S. citizenship? And you'll only find one. And the only right you have as a federal U.S. citizen is to be physically located in the District of Columbia. A state citizen going into the District of Columbia is essentially visiting a foreign world, a foreign nation. It's like going and visiting New Zealand. A U.S. citizen isn't really even supposed to leave the District of Columbia. If you leave the District of Columbia, you're basically like a wandering nomad. You don't really have any real nationality at all. So this is the time period where you have this split of state citizenship versus U.S. citizenship, right? Mm-hmm. Now the way that this whole thing became national of the United States, it's basically the new way that you would say the term state citizenship. And the reason why is because this California is a nation, and the District of Columbia, or United States, is a completely foreign nation. So if you're in California as a state citizen, I don't like the word citizen very much, so I just say, state, whatever you want to say, state inhabitant, or however you want to say it. If you're a state inhabitant of California, you are a non-citizen national of the nation called United States if you pledge allegiance to the United States. So you're a foreigner. You're starting to see that term used in the media, foreign national. So foreign national means somebody who domiciles outside of the District of Columbia, but they have pledged allegiance to a nation located inside the District of Columbia called United States.
Right.
That's a non-citizen national.
Right.
You don't need to live in the District of Columbia to pledge allegiance to the United States. You could live in an igloo in Antarctica and you can pledge allegiance to the United States.
Well, we say it when we
Allegiance.
pledge every when you get in front of that flag, you're pledging your allegiance to it under
Yeah,
God,
and if
right?
we
One
get
nation under God.
into and getting into a couple things that just really, really prove this out and just bash it home for anyone that might be even the slightest bit still skeptical, this is going to just smash
Let's do
any
it.
additional skeptical ability that you have at all, even if it's a fabric of it. 8 USC 1401 explains how the following shall be nationals and citizens of the United States at birth. And then 8 USC 1408 is the opposite. And that this one shows you the following shall be nationals, but not citizens of the United States at birth. So nationality and citizenship are two completely, utterly they're barely even relatable. They're two completely different subjects. And another way that you can look at this that's very, very fascinating is if you go to the US Code, Title 8 is not citizenship and nationality.
Mm-hmm.
It's aliens and nationality. I'm not even sure citizenship is really covered a whole lot in Title 8. They're not talking about citizenship. So here we go. We have got freedmen, civil rights, elective franchise, alien ownership of land, immigration, exclusion of Chinese, the coolie trade, miscellaneous provisions, alien registration, nationality, immigration and nationality, immigration and naturalization services, restricting welfare and public benefits for aliens, enhanced border security, and visa entry reform. Those are the main chapters that are located inside of Title 8. None of them have the word citizenship in them at all. Two completely different subjects. You don't need a green card. You don't need any of that shit. All you have to do is pledge allegiance, and there's a bit more, but you pledge allegiance, and boom, you are a non-citizen national of the United States.
Right.
Green cards and citizenships, and it's all horseshit. All of it.
So just some of the feedback and rumble is Christy is talking about how she's never heard any of this explained like this before, which is awesome. I mean,
Thank
and
you.
this is why I wanted to bring you on, because you put this through a different lens, and your filter is, I think, definitely a better, more relatable to the lay speak out there, layperson, because you bring so many of the government codes and definitions and you pull them all together. And I've never seen it done like that before to this extent and to this degree. So I think it's fantastic. It drives it home, literally drives it home for those conspiracy theorist, waving flag people out there. Hello, eat crow. It's right here.
Yeah, that's why I don't like talking. I like showing, because the
Yeah.
thing is that all the haters and all the skeptics, I don't get haters or skeptics literally ever. And when I do, they're literally they're just batshit crazy. This is a lot to swallow. Depending on your history, depending on your tax history, a lot of people want to paint their face and load their guns, which I definitely do not support. So the thing is that, there's a lot of emotions attached to this. And the only way I can get a skeptic is through an emotional meltdown, basically. And I just basically ignore that because I don't have time for emotional meltdowns. I've got litigation to do. So if you look on the DS11 form, this is the passport application form.
Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah. You can even see here in the signature area, which you're not supposed to sign until you're in front of the agent, right? Do not sign application until required to do so by authorized agent. For anyone who's gotten a passport, you experience this. Mm-hmm. So I declare under penalty of perjury all of the following. 1, I am a citizen or non-citizen national of the United States. It's right there, right?
Rest my case.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting thing. We'll start getting into something a little bit more crazy, actually, that's kind of fascinating. So if you look at, this is the front page of the DS11 form, and no one has ever noticed, and I didn't even notice it for the first year and a half, and I was talking about the passport all the time. This upper right section, you have this giant white blob, and then you have these little boxes, and then you have this END dot space pound line, EXP dot space line. And then if you look, there are areas of the form that are very clear. Do not fill this out. Don't touch this. And I think there's one over here too. Yeah, do not write below this line. If you look, the areas that you're supposed to be writing in are tan. It's a tan, yellowish tan color. This area is in the section that you are the one who's supposed to be filling out. So it's very confusing. What is this? I've never noticed this before. Well, what you're looking at is 22 CFR 51.3 types of passports. They're asking you what type of passport would you like to have? There are 4 types of passport. Passport 1, a regular passport, is issued to a national of the United States. What is a national of the United States? A citizen of the United States, or B, a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, comma, owes permanent allegiance to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That is the definition of national of the United States, or U.S.national. Okay. Service passport. This is for a non-personal services contractor traveling abroad to carry out duties in support of and pursuant to a contract with the U.S. government. Then you have an official passport, which has 4 different subsections, but it's all still official passports. Personal services contractor traveling abroad, blah, 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 blah. Then you have the diplomatic passport issued to a foreign service officer or a person with diplomatic status, right? So they're asking you, would you like a D, diplomat, O, official, S, service, or NFR, which means no fee regular, which just means basically regular, or regular passport? Which one would you like to have? Then you have END._pound_line. What is that one? This is where things get exciting. 8FAM 505.2. Passport endorsements. This is an unclassified section of the Foreign Affairs Manual, FAM. You can type in 8-FAM_505.2 into Google, and this will pop right up. And you're going to scroll down to what I call the window shopping section, which is 505.2-2, list of current endorsements. Now, what you're going to see here is these are the various types of passports that you can get. And we're going to look at all the different endorsement codes. And what it's telling us here is these various codes, which we're going to be looking at, do they apply only to diplomatic passports? Do they apply only to courtesy diplomatic passports? Does it apply only to passport cards, official passport, no fee regular passport, service passport, or any type? So some of the endorsements can apply to literally anything, right? Mm-hmm. And even though you'll see that there appears to be more types of passports here, it's still just 4 main types, and then a couple of them have some subtypes, okay? So here are all of the endorsement codes for the END.pound/line section of the DS11 form. All sorts of good things. It goes on and on and on and on. And look at some of the ones that are really interesting. The bearer is a diplomatic courier for the United States government. The bearer is an ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary of the United States of America to a certain country. The bearer is also known as, and it has special naming devices and things, right? Status of the bearer is a representative of the United States of America to the African Union, European Union, Vienna office of the United Nations, blah, 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 with a special rank. We're going to go down here. This is where things get interesting. We have 09, and that applies to all types of passports. So all 4 types, you can use the 09 endorsement. The bearer is a United States national and not a United States citizen. Prior to the creation of this endorsement in 1992, the bearer's status as a non-citizen U.S. national was indicated by circling the word national or crossing out the word citizen in the secretary's message on the signature page of the U.S. passport. Oops. So what people used to do is they used to just, when they fill out the DS11, they would just cross out citizen and they would circle non-citizen national right here. And then when they got the passport, just like what you have in your hand that you were reading earlier, they would cross out the word citizen and they would circle the word national, which you can still do.
Yeah.
So right on your passport, when you sign the passport book, because you have to sign it, it says signature in there, you can cross out the word national, the word citizen, and circle the word non-citizen, national, or national. Because I think you said earlier, what is it? I don't have one here. It's citizen/national, right?
Right.
Yeah. So you cross out the word citizen, circle the word national, and then sign it.
Yeah, it's on the I know you'll never be able to read it, but it's in this paragraph right up here. Everybody has it. If you open up your passport book, everybody has this right here.
Perfect. Now, this one here is very, very fascinating. Diplomatic endorsement code number 11. This is actually my favorite one. This is the one that I always use, and I use for everything. But this is a whole nother subject: diplomatic immunity and diplomats and all this kind of thing, right? So endorsement code number 11 is the bearer is ambassador at large for title. So if you go on the internet and type in what is an ambassador at large, there's another definition here. So basically what it is it's a diplomat or a secretary or a minister of the highest rank who is accredited to represent a country or nation and its people internationally, right? So what's funny is this also proves everything I've been telling you in terms of what is a nation. Because look at the example they give here. Ambassador at large for global women's issues. Is global women's issues a territory or location?
No.
Is global women's issues what people would normally associate with the word country?
Nope.
Precisely. Global women's issues is a nation. You don't have to have land or territory or a physical location to have your own nation. You already have a bunch of nations.
Cells. It's a bunch of cells that make up a bunch of people
Precisely.
or persons. Exactly.
So another thing we can get into on this, now that we're starting to get into diplomatic, is the definition of the term foreign government. You're going to start seeing this a lot in the media. We've already started seeing this where they're saying, oh, this nation or this micronation or this foreign national does not have recognition, blah, 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 blah. Totally irrelevant. If I was in court, it'd be objection irrelevant. The definition of the term foreign government includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So you have a nation by simply saying you have a nation. You naturalize into that nation by simply conferring that nation upon yourself, and then that nation becomes a legal, separate governing body. Does not need any recognition. The government doesn't even need to know about it, and it becomes a legal foreign government only under one condition: the word peace.
Sorry about that. I got kicked out of my own stream. I'm back.
Oh, whoops. Oh, I didn't even notice that you were gone. I apologize.
Keep carrying on. You're doing great, Brandon. You know, it's a regular thing.
Did you see this? Did you see this
Show
definition of foreign government?
Yep. I didn't. I got kicked out about 30 seconds ago or 20 seconds ago. The term foreign government is used in
Wait,
this
where were we when? Where were we when?
No, no, I was there. I got all that. You had just gone to this screen.
Global women's issues. Okay. So the term foreign government includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So you see in the media now, they're starting to say that these micronations are not recognized by the United States. They say that in an effort to try to discredit the nation.
Great.
That does not discredit the nation at all because recognition is irrelevant. But what is the most important thing if you want to have your own nation and your own foreign government? It's just one word. It's the word peace, right? And all you have to do to figure out what that means is, well, look up the definition of the word peace. I have my own nation website here, and we're going to go to the definition of the word peace, which is located on my covenant. Peace, here it is. The definition of peace and the definition of nation are terrifically similar, which makes perfect sense. Peace is defined as the tranquility enjoyed by a political society, internally by the good order which reigns among its members, and externally by the good understanding it has with all other nations. Applied to the internal regulations of a nation, peace imports, which means like sort of shows or assumes or displays, in a technical sense, not merely a state of repose and security as opposed to one of violence or warfare, but likewise a state of public order and decorum. And this is why you have all these diplomatic things. You have diplomatic, like if you ever look in the diplomatic manuals and stuff like that, like at a dinner table, there's a specific way everyone sits. There's a specific way that you shake hands. There's a specific way that you introduce other people to other people, depending on their rank or situation. There's specific places where people sit at the table. There's even specific ways that the silverware is supposed to be arranged. And what all that, you still with me?
I'm still with you.
And what all that is that's
can we just,
public.
I can just create my own, I can create my own nation essentially, or my own whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
And anyone that wants to join that nation would simply pledge allegiance to that nation, and they are a national or non-citizen national of your nation.
Okay, my new nation is now the Freedom Industrial Complex, and I declare it to be so.
Yes. Now, the only thing is that that nation, in order to be qualified as a foreign government in relation to the United States government, would have to operate at peace in relation to the United States.
Oh, of course, freedom is always about peace. We don't need to have, we don't need to go to guns here. We're about freedom. We're in our own industrial complex too, because we're sick of all the other industrial complexes and paying for that industrial complex from the military and the pharmaceuticals, etc. We're now the Freedom Industrial Complex. So there you go.
Perfect. So yeah, so this is basically my full breakdown of citizenship versus nationality, and nationality being having to do with a nation, nationality. This is the entire subject of nationality, and citizenship is irrelevant. You can literally just essentially remove it from the equation entirely. If you go on to my Instagram account, which let me just stop sharing for just a moment, because I don't know what the hell is going to pop up when I type that in. Instagram. Let's go to my profile, and then there's something that's very interesting that I just posted.
So while you're looking for that, I just a couple of questions, because when I applied for my passport, the big thing was you're going to get 4 or 5 stars. I didn't select D at the time because I didn't know I could. This is going back 2 years ago. I've subsequently learned that, and I've seen other people like yourself reiterate it. I do have my long form birth certificate now. I did get a 4-star on my passport card, and I do go in and out of the country regularly. I'll be back down in Panama here very shortly. We just had a call today. I'm doing a lot of work on the border stuff. So I always come back in through the, non-resident or non-citizen line, when I come through immigration in Miami airport. So, for me to get a diplomatic passport and change my, confirm my nationality to the new Freedom Industrial Complex nation, is it a difficult process? I mean,
no, you don't even need that. You don't even need that. You can issue your own passports. You can just make your own for your nation. Okay. You can keep your U.S. passport just how it is, and you can actually create and manufacture your own. For example, I can get into it here in a moment. I will tell you guys about Slowjamastan in just a moment. I am a parliament member, and I have some special diplomatic passports here, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But I wanted to show you one more thing. I want to do another screen share and show you one more thing on this. So this is a post that we had just posted. This is straight off of a Wells Fargo credit card application online form. Yep. It says here citizenship. If you click non-resident alien and then country of citizenship, you go to stateless. There's a little note that pops up that's very, very mind-blowing. And I wanted to share this. This also shows a lot of what we're doing. A stateless person is someone who under national laws does not enjoy citizenship, which is hilarious, And they define citizenship in a very interesting way: the legal bond between a government and an individual. I thought that was
Hmm.
very, very fascinating.
Yeah.
In any country. While some people are de jure, which I thought was also very, very fascinating, which means of law or of original law or of common law,
Right.
or legally stateless persons, meaning they are not recognized as citizens under the laws of any state, which I also found very, very interesting. They're defining a non-citizen national as a stateless person, because you think like, oh, stateless, that's bad, right? Again, it just
Yeah.
comes down to the occult of words and phrases, because you think stateless and you think, oh, that's bad, I don't want that. I've never seen anything like this defined this way. I actually thought stateless was also a bad thing up until literally I saw this.
Right.
And they define stateless person, meaning they are not recognized as citizens under the laws of any state. Many people are de facto. De facto means that it may not be of law, but it is of fact anyways, basically.
Right. Right.
Or effectively stateless persons, meaning they are not recognized as citizens by any state, even if they have a claim to citizenship under the laws of one or more states. So it's very, very interesting. We're starting to see this information in a lot more mainline areas, and I find this particularly exciting
How did
personally.
you find this, Brandon? Because I saw this on your Twitter page today. I was blown away. I had it all. Everything you're not everything. A lot of what you're showing, I actually had all these little tabs queued up. So I'm glad you're driving this bus because you made it a lot easier than I would have done. But this is freaking gold. It's
So
gold.
I get sent things all the time. I'm like a Lexus Nexus. I'm like a human Lexus Nexus. I get information all the time and pictures, and I have tons and tons of people who report to me on litigation and all sorts of things. So I get a lot of. Most of it is not very exciting, and most of it I ignore, and I just say thank you very much, but it's actually very annoying. But every once in a while I will get some real gems, and this is a real fucking gem, man. This is
That's a
a
gem.
big gem, right? So we get these big huge monster gems, and then what I do is I post them online, sometimes with my opinion on them, sometimes with some background information, or sometimes just with no information. I'll just post them because people will know. This is one of those ones where I don't need to say a damn thing. This is just mind blowing,
Well,
right?
and the benefit to showing people that the zip code is all 5 zeros is basically saying I'm not part of the zone improvement parcel. I'm not a part of the federal, corporation known as the United States. I'm not a citizen because the zip code is another way to just basically put a net right over you and go, whoop, you're trapped right back in. So you never want to, if you're not a U.S. citizen, you never claim a zip code. That's just kind of
I'm very glad you said that, actually, because there's an important part of this discussion that I completely skipped because I must be demented. I haven't done a lot of shows recently. I've been like mainly focusing on litigation. So let's we really need to cover this. I totally forgot about this. State of California. So you say that there's this oh, I'm not going to say I'm a US citizen anymore. Okay, that's fine. But we also have this other thing called State of California, right? So State of California is listed on Dun and Bradstreet as a business, right?
right.
So state, if United States is located in the District of Columbia and it's a business, where do you think the business called State of California is located?
Well, I know the answer.
It's
It's
the
in a file
District of
cabinet in a
Columbia.
drawer in the United States file cabinet in DC.
So what happens is that there's actually two areas of naturalization. Remember, naturalization is the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. You have two huge bear traps. The first one is this term United States. The second one is state of California, state of Texas, state of New Mexico, state of Utah. Okay. Now, when you confer the nationality of state of California upon yourself or your businesses or your estates or your companies, corporations, trusts, you are also naturalizing that person into the District of Columbia. So there's two bear traps, right?
Right.
Now the main ways that this particular bear trap, state of California, gets activated, there's three ways. And what's funny is that all three of these ways are the only ways that they can establish residency in state of California, because they can't physically prove anything about physical location. And if you look into the laws of each state, there is no information about meets and bounds or coordinates, because the location is unknown. The physical location of state of California has never been it doesn't exist. So the only way you can get into state of California as a citizen or domicile there, or they always use the word resident. Resident is hilarious because it has this commercial. If you look at the definition of resident, basically the definition of resident is that you're temporarily in a location. You intend to return to your domicile, which is like your real permanent address, and you're at this particular temporary place for either some kind of like vacation essentially, or for some business related purpose. And that term resident opens the door for them to assume that it's a commercial activity. And that's how they suck you into the commercial codes, is the term resident. Okay. So you don't need to use the word resident, or you can just redefine it. You can say domicile. Domicile is the original term. If you go back 150 years, that's the term that they used. So when they ask so there's three ways that they suck you into naturalizing to be a resident of this state that is located in the District of Columbia. You still with me?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, just want to make
Good
sure.
stuff.
So number one is voter registration.
Yep.
Number two is the driver's license. And then number three is paying state taxes.
Right.
So you didn't have a state tax liability until you told them that you were a resident of the business called State of California, which naturalized you into the business called State of California.
Right.
When you do voter registration, you sign under penalty of perjury stating that you are a resident of State of California. When you get a driver's license, you sign, I believe, under penalty of perjury, it might not be, that you are a resident of State of California. So I was talking to AI recently, and I was like, well, wait a second. If I don't have voter registration, or I cancel it, and I don't have a driver's license, or I get rid of it, and I don't pay state tax, then how can they establish residency? And they can't.
Right.
Because the thing is, State of California and California are two entirely different nations.
Mm-hmm.
California has a physical location. State of California does not. You can only get to State of California through the process of naturalization.
This is
Naturalization is everything.
So to some people that are going, whoa, wait, hold on a second. So you canceled your voter registration. Like, what are you going to do in November? Because I'm going to let you answer the question first, and then I want to take us back to the 14th again.
Mm-hmm.
You voting in November?
No, so as many of the people that are listening know, I usually don't go into this too much because it's more common knowledge. When you were born, there was this corporation of your name in all capital letters, right? And a corporation is a person, right? So you're actually two different persons, right?
Right.
So you can send, I like the term ens legis. That means a creature of the law.
Right.
That's what it means. It means something. It means a person that's born entirely out of the legal system. So it includes trusts, partnerships, estates, corporations, all of it, everything, all of it, anything born. It's a very blanket term. It's a very beautiful term because I don't need to list all the different types of entities and then worry that they're going to create some new type that won't be included in what I was saying. Ens legis is just a great blanket term for anything that comes out of the law, right? So the ens legis can still be a U.S. citizen, and you can actually go into a voter booth and you can actually vote as the attorney on behalf of the ens legis. You can still vote legally.
Right.
But technically speaking, on voter registration, you would actually attach a power of attorney, and you would actually, the person, called all caps Brandon Joe Williams, would be the person who's going to be voting. It wouldn't be you. And that's how you can do all the things that I do and that I'm teaching you. You can still go and vote if it's something that is very, very important to you. I don't see the point in it at all. I don't think it's going to change anything. I think that all politics and all voting is all just one giant bear trap to get you to naturalize into the District of Columbia.
I agree with you. And the reason I agree with you on that statement is when I look at the 14th Amendment, when they conferred the citizenship of U.S. citizenship on everybody by joining the club when they made all the states, and most of them didn't want to do it, as you probably are well aware. I'm sure you've read the congressional record from back then. 41% of the states voted no for the first 2 years from 66 to 68, 1866 to 68. They saw where this rabbit hole was going, which is where we are today. So I think we were electing our public servants from 1776 till 1868. We were electing public servants. Once we became U.S. citizens, we started voting in our debt slave masters, and that's where we are today. Is that a fair demarcation and definition differential?
Yeah, you have a lot of things that happen in 1871, the Organic Act. You have the incorporation of the District of Columbia, and if you read sections of the Organic Act, the cookie or the benefit, the big dog that they put in there to try to get everybody excited about the Organic Act was the public school system.
Yeah, what a nightmare.
So that was the whole birth of the entire incorporated government was born out of the idea of the public school system. Prior to 1871, you just had a bunch of moms and you just had whatever, and kids just doing whatever with their parents and playing outside, and that was it. There was no public school system, right? So then you have that, and then you have the U.S. citizen category that all the slaves got released into. Then you have, obviously, in 1913 and all that, you have the Federal Reserve Act. So after the Federal Reserve Act, now you had two different types of, you have money, which is defined as gold and silver coins, and then you had currency, which was the Federal Reserve note from 1913 all the way up through 1933. And then in 1933, you have the Emergency Banking Act, where I forget who it was, the Gold Abrogation Act, where they pulled all the gold and silver coins out of the entire country.
Roosevelt.
And then from 1933 on, then that's when you only saw the Federal Reserve note in action. But from 1913 until 1933, you had both. You had gold and silver coins and Federal Reserve notes.
Right. And you could exchange them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were called silver certificates and gold certificates, right?
Right.
Which you saw those before 1913 as well. Gold certificates and silver certificates actually go way back. But yeah, so there's this whole kind of timeline of everything that kind of went down. This whole idea of nationality,
including the Birth Certificate Act, and you said
so that all came around that same time period in 1933. You have the Social Security Act is from 1935.
Correct.
So what happened was the backing of the U.S. dollar, which the definition of U.S. dollar changed dramatically during that time period, obviously. So the definition of U.S. dollar prior to 1933 was gold and silver coins, essentially. After 1933, it became this whole thing of like banknotes and all these different things, and promissory notes and gold certificates and silver certificates and all these different things. And after 1933, they basically redefined it to where gold and silver coins weren't really included in the definition of U.S. Currency or U.S. dollars. And then the definition of the idea of our monetary system changed from the backing of the monetary system being precious metals, gold and silver. That changed to, quote, the full faith and credit of the United States, end quote. So what backs our money now is, quote, the full faith and credit of the United States, end quote. And then you start going down the rabbit hole of what that means. It's kind of terrifying because a lot of what they say that means is the ability to tax, which is like crazy. Taxation is the spinal cord of this idea of the full faith and credit of the United States, which is just craziness. When you start getting into what really does that mean, full faith and credit of the United States, that was the birth of endless taxation. Because that's what's behind a lot of what they're talking about when they say full faith and credit of the United States.
Which is also originating from us.
Yeah.
Means us. It's our sweat equity. It's our debt slavery. Because that's
when you realize at the same time, though, in 1933, what they did is they created a system where we can just sign away any debts. It's just that no one knows how to do it. And that's another subject that I teach a lot about. It's called endorsements, INDORSEMENT. And the thing is that you can literally sign away all debts if you know how to do it. And I have a whole series of videos, lots of videos. It's actually the main thing that I'm researching now and have been for about a year and a half.
Where are you, by the way, with your Amex stuff? I've listened to I'm in your advanced course now. I just got to the second one this morning, as a matter of fact, when I was out doing my exercise, and you had just sent them a second, what did you call it? You had just sent American Express another letter saying, "Hey, here's your registered return receipt. You guys have received it. I've already sent you basically my payment, et cetera." You were, trying to get rid of
Yes.
this.
So we're in federal litigation now, and all that information can be found on williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com. And then I have some
Okay.
litigation mini course videos on my YouTube channel, and I teach you how to get into what's called Pacer. I showed it at the beginning of the show,
Right.
and you can type in my case number, and you can pull up the docket, and you can download anything off of any docket of any court case. Well,
Are you having
Pacer is
fun?
specifically for federal case. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm having a blast. Are you kidding me? I'm working on like 12 more cases right now. We're going to have like 12 more pop in here in the next, like probably 60
So
days.
you're getting all of this recorded in court right now, which is, I think, probably
Yeah.
one of the reasons you like doing this, because you want this published in the public ethos, and they have to swallow it whole, essentially.
Yeah. So we're just, they're putting up a really big fight because they realize that what I'm doing, it's so loud and it's so out there that everyone is watching. They've never really experienced anything like this before. Typically people who do what I do, they try to make it quiet, and they can actually win the case doing it that way. They feel obligated to fight because they know that if I win, all hell's going to break loose because everyone's going to start doing it. And I'm just having fun. I'm just having a blast. I don't even really care that much about winning necessarily. I mean, for me, it's a learning process, and it's a really big one, by the way. It's a big learning process. So my main focus is just learning every single day, becoming a better and better litigant. And I'm going to start suing everyone. I'm going to sue the state of Indiana, the Indiana Department of Health and Human Services regarding the birth certificate. We're going to get that case into discovery. I'm going to dig up as much information as I can and publish all of it. I'm going after all 3 credit bureaus. I just sent my novation, which novation means a change in a contract. I just sent out all 3 novations yesterday. I'm going after the DMV. They just got a second letter. Once they get to the third letter is going to be, I'm going to be suing you very, very soon if you don't respond and perform on these orders that I've sent you. And then the Small Business Administration for a COVID EIDL loan, they've already received the second letter. So they'll get the third one here soon, and then we're going to go straight into litigation. And then I have a client I'm onboarding right now. He has 5 mortgages. We're going to be going after all 5 financing institutions for probably about $100 million each. And then
Wow.
the county, we're also going after the county. So all 5 of his properties are all in the same county. And we're also going to go after the county as well and sue them as well to release interest on all 5 properties.
It's and just to get people up to speed, essentially when you take out a death pledge, a mortgage, you sign a 1099-A, which the bank turns around and goes to the Federal Reserve window and gets money taken out of your Social Security trust, and it's paid for immediately. And then they continue to send you statements after that, which are not true bills. And they're just saying, okay, this is what your prorated mortgage is with interest for this statement, and you pay for it all over again. So,
No, it doesn't quite work like that. It's close.
okay.
So the original promissory note that you sign when you get the mortgage, that's
Yeah.
actually a security, because a Federal Reserve note, what's in your wallet, those little $20 bills and all that, those are also promissory notes.
Right.
Everything is either a promissory note or a bill of exchange. Promissory note is defined as an unconditional promise to pay. A bill of exchange is defined as an unconditional order to pay. And
Okay.
US dollars are literally defined as promissory notes and bills of exchange. All that's what the definition of US dollars is in its most basic simplicity. So the way it works is they take that original promissory note when you sign it in a way that you don't realize that you're signing it wrong. And you're basically releasing interest in that original security without any conditions or attachments. What they do is they take that promissory note and they go to the Federal Reserve discount window, which they have a whole website. You can go on there and you can see everyone who has access to the Federal Reserve discount window by just going literally right on the website. They have a whole section on existing access and anyone who's requested access. They have 2 different sections. The original promissory note in relationship to the Federal Reserve discount window is called a collateral security. And if you look at 12 USC 412, they tell you the entire process. It's called application for notes. They actually write an application for notes, and they put up that original promissory note as a collateral security, and then the Federal Reserve gives them Federal Reserve notes equal to the maturity value of that promissory note. And since you never expressed a claim or any interest in that original note, and there's a certain way you have to do that if you want to express a claim on that note, then they bring back those Federal Reserve notes from the Federal Reserve discount window, and that's how the loan, quote unquote, is actually funded. You funded your own loan, but because you didn't, because you signed the original security, it's sort of like if you sign the original security and you don't know what you're doing, and you don't endorse it correctly, it's basically like just leaving a gigantic, massive pile of money on the table and being like, nah, I don't really need that. You guys can do whatever you want with that. Thank you very much for your help. Have a nice day. And then getting up and walking away without any conditions. But when you understand how endorsement works, and you understand the different types of endorsement, and you understand how to endorse, you can actually sign the original promissory note in a way where you actually claim the value of the note for yourself. And then what happens after that is that the financial institution is not a lender anymore. They're actually just a currency exchange.
Right.
So you're converting the bank from a lender into a currency exchange. And what's funny is that when you start studying UCC Article 3, which is all about how all this works, what's funny is that they can't actually deny any of it. And if they try to stop you or tell you that they won't do it, you sue them for breach of contract and you'll win every single time. They can't stop you from doing it.
It's amazing that all this is right there. But again, I call it the word salad, and people don't want to take the time to look because it's not sexy, right? The way it's written, as some like yourself, it's very sexy information because you devour it. To other people, they're busy living their lives, they're raising kids, they're doing whatever, or because of the US taxation system, both parents are working, they don't have time to pay attention. It's really quite an incredible debt slave society that we have manifested for ourselves. And we didn't pay attention to the people we were electing either. So it's because of people like you, Brandon, that people are getting educated and getting up to speed. You make it really entertaining. Your website is onestupidfuck.com. Pardon, my audience is not usually used to hearing me say the word fuck, but I just said it again. So, but that's your website, onestupidfuck.com. And you've got a plethora of information. You have a great YouTube channel. You make your delivery of this information. Tonight was, like, I would say, not your typical style. You're usually very animated, entertaining, and you do crazy stuff and you sing and whatever. But it's a great way to get people who don't have the patience to digest information at a serious tone to listen because it's entertaining. And I think you're reaching a demographic of people that, the millennials, which are literally stupid fucks out there because they just don't care. Now you're grabbing them and you're getting them entertained and you're teaching them. And this is what has been eliminated altogether, including civics, from any kind of education system. So, I mean, like you said, lawyers and people in government don't know what you just told us tonight. They literally don't know any of this. And this is their guidance. These are their rules and regulations.
Of everything I have talked about on this entire show, the only thing that literally anyone you have ever talked to or spoken to in your entire life ever, whether it be lawyers, attorneys, unless they're judges probably have a little bit more information. The only thing of all the information I've gone over so far today that they have ever been exposed to, that they have any reality on whatsoever, would be the definition of the word person. But they wouldn't really even know what the importance of that even was. But you could say to some people, the definition of the word person includes estates and partnerships and legal fictions. Oh yeah, I knew that. But the thing is that do they know what that means or how that works or what significance that has? No. That's the absolute limit of any of this information being known by anyone. You could go into the passport office. Think about this. If Title 8 defines a person as an individual or an organization, then what's stopping you from getting passports issued to your trusts and your corporations, which are persons in the law? No one's ever done that. But I guarantee you, if you sue the Department of State, if you fill out a DS-11 passport application form and you put in the name of a company, first name is Starbucks, last name is Incorporated, and you fill out the birthday of whenever that particular corporation was incorporated, and you
Right.
fill out all the information as though that corporation is a person, because it is, and you send it in, they'll deny you. If you sue the Department of State and you bring up all this information, I guarantee you, and I'm probably going to do it at some point just for fun, they will issue that corporation a passport.
You know, you're sitting here giving me and my audience all kinds of really great ideas, you know, like when we're literally have nothing else to do with, you know, hopefully nothing else to do here once we save America. And that's the mission that I'm on, the mission that, you know, my audience is on. We're here trying to save our country, restore the republic. But this is what a great way to get out of the Gordian knot. You've just untangled the Gordian knot for
Mhm.
my audience tonight, which is phenomenal because most people just give up. You know, they have no idea where to begin. They look at these rules, codes, and statutes, and their eyes glaze over, and they go, "The hell with it." You know, I'll just keep paying taxes, or I just won't, and I'll just, you know, get into a paper terrorism war back and forth with the IRS, which really is all it is. It's just, you know, like you said, they're just people there processing papers. Oh, this form came in, stick it over here. That's all it is. You know, so tell IRS, revoke your election, send them a Form 56 and say, peace, I'm out.
Oh, I can talk about that if you want to real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about it because nobody wants to pay taxes anymore at all. Who wants to fund the crap our government's doing? I don't.
Well, it isn't funding anything. I mean, that's
It's
all
not.
just an
I
illusion.
know.
All your tax money that goes to the IRS, it just vanishes in the IRS. And there's even internal reports that you can find where they literally talk about how it doesn't go anywhere. It gets squandered, or it goes to pay the interest on the loan or whatever, and it doesn't actually. You've never paid one penny to anything taxation wise that's ever gone to anything that you think it's going to at all. It has nothing. It's totally irrelevant. That's all just an illusion. That's all an illusion to make you believe as though you are funding the government. And the reason why is because you are more likely to defend that of which you invest in, right?
Right.
So what they're trying to do is they create an illusion that you are investing in something in order for that of which goes into the mind, and then that of which you invest in, you defend. And it's literally a psychological warfare process. It is an illusion that is created to get you to defend the system. That's why taxation exists. Okay. 26 CFR 1.871-1. Now, again, you know, you could say like, oh, the government's so evil because they do this, right? Well, no, I don't think so. I don't think anyone even knows how that any of this works this way at all. I think everybody's, I don't know. I think the people who set all this up, and maybe 100 and something years ago, maybe there was a bunch of evil people running around, but now I think it's just kind of like a derelict ship. I mean, yeah, at the very, very tippy top, people know what's going on. Besides that, I don't think hardly anybody else does. So, you know, you start to calm down a lot and get a lot less angry when you realize that I don't really think intent is part of the equation ever. I mean, the chances that you're going to go through your life and meet someone who, you also got to think this. If they knew any of this information, if they knew about negotiable instruments and financials, if they knew about why, they wouldn't be working in some cubicle for $14 an hour at the IRS or at a payment processing center for Bank of America. They wouldn't be there. So the fact that they're there automatically is evidence that they have no idea about any of this information. So why you'd get mad at them over the phone thinking that they know all this information, there's no way in hell. If they knew any of this information, they wouldn't be there. It's very simple, right? But anyways, 26 CFR 1.871-1. There's two, for the purposes of the income tax, alien individuals, which means foreign individuals, by the way, which is really interesting if you start looking into how this works. Basically, everyone in the District of Columbia is all aliens. And if you start looking into kind of how that works, just a real quick side note, we have 91, is it 91O? Let's see here, district. Let me just take a peek here. Yeah, so persons allowed in the zone, right? 19 USC 81O. If you look at this one, residents of the District of Columbia, no person shall be allowed to reside within the zone except federal, state, or municipal officers or agents whose residence presence is deemed necessary by the board. So if you're a U.S. citizen, you're an employee, but you don't live there. You just work there. And that's why in the tax code, you'll notice everything has the word alien, resident alien, non-resident alien. Everybody's an alien.
Right.
There's no other choices besides alien. Well, U.S. citizen, but that doesn't really, that's just an employee or officer of the federal corporation, right? Yep. So for purposes of the income tax, alien individuals are divided generally into two classes, namely resident aliens. Resident meaning they're there temporarily for some kind of business-related purpose. Alien meaning foreigner. And non-resident aliens, right? Resident alien individuals are, in general, taxable the same as citizens of the United States. That is, a resident alien is taxable on income derived from all sources, including sources without, which means outside of the United States, right? And you can see that another really interesting thing on that one is, let's see here. This is my state national resources page. Oh, I know there's a really good one here. Let's see. Real quick. Let's see here. This is an interesting one for USC 72. This also shows you that state of California, county of Los Angeles, and city of Los Angeles are all located in the District of Columbia.
Right.
This one, I'll show you guys. This one is a cute
all
little...
physically, legally located. Means they're in a file cabinet in a drawer.
All offices attached to the seat of government shall be exercised in the District of Columbia and not elsewhere except as otherwise expressly provided by law. And that is for USC 72.
Yep.
But that's not what I was looking for. Let me see here.
There we go.
I'm just going to look for another moment or so, and then I'll just kind of move on because I'm not going to. But let me see here. District. I'm going to see. District.
Do you want to be a district?
Oh, here we go. This is it. This comes from that same definition section we saw earlier, 26 USC 7701, the same place we saw the definition of the word person. Actually, there's a couple of things here I can show you that are very interesting. Every time you get a letter from the IRS, and every time you see anything they ever write to anyone, they refer to you or to the whoever person they're writing to. It's not actually you at all. The term taxpayer. The term taxpayer means any person subject to any internal revenue tax. So if you are not subject to any internal revenue tax, then you are not by definition a taxpayer. Right. But what's funny is if you tell them that, they'll just ignore it and keep calling you a taxpayer. It's actually fucking hilarious. But moving on from that, I wanted to show you this one here. 20, what was it? 38? Which one was it? 39. Okay, 39. Here we go. Persons residing outside United States. If any citizen or resident of the United States does not reside in and is not found in any United States judicial district, such citizen or resident shall be treated as residing in the District of Columbia for purposes of any provision of this title relating to jurisdiction of courts or enforcement of summons. And this is exactly why the tax code is written the way it is. Because if you're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien, and the only way you can become either of those things is by telling them that you are, there's no physical location anywhere in law. There's no meets and bounds or coordinates about anything. The only way you can become either one is by conferring the nationality of these things upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever. If you're in France and you've conferred the nationality of District of Columbia or United States upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever, you are under the jurisdiction of courts, and they can enforce summons on you regardless of where you're at. And that's why it says here in 26 CFR 1.871-1, it says here, taxable on all income derived from all sources, including sources without the United States. And now we have another term called non-resident alien individuals are taxable only on certain income from sources within the United States. and on the income described in blah, blah, blah. If you go down this rabbit hole, it doesn't go anywhere. It's actually really funny. That's just a bunch of crap, and it doesn't make any sense, and it just like peters away into darkness. There's nothing there. So I don't even get into that. I just stick into, here's a definition of resident alien. I just clicked on that. Non-resident alien is non-resident alien.
Non-resident alien.
That's when you know they don't want you to know something. When you start seeing stuff like that, you know you're hot on the trail of some good shit, just by the way. There's two ways that you'll know that you're hot on the trail of good stuff when you're doing legal research. A, you see stuff like this. Or B, like, where's the word income? Or you see stuff like this. This is when you know you're hot on the trail of something really, really good. If it's really, really short and retarded, you know you're in hot. You're hot. You're red hot, right? It's like playing hide and seek. Or if you see something super ultra long and really, really complex and convoluted, that means you are red hot. The anvil is smoking. That means we do not want you looking here. Beep, 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 beep,
right.
beep,
Back
beep.
away, step away.
Back away, step away, right? So non-resident alien individuals are taxable only on certain income from sources within the United States and on, just ignore that because it doesn't go anywhere. Now, this is where things get crazy. However, non-resident alien individuals may elect to be treated as U.S. residents for purposes of determining their income tax liability. Now, the way I look at this is the tax code's version of naturalization. If you live in California, but you've conferred the nationality of this state or nation called the United States, which is located God knows where, somewhere in the District of Columbia, you're a non-resident alien individual that has elected through naturalization to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purposes of determining your income tax liability. This is what you've done.
Why the hell would you want to do that?
If you fill out a W-9 tax form, that's what you did.
You opted in, baby.
You opted in. You subscribed. It's a subscription service. Okay.
Don't let me forget, we want to talk about the W-4T and the W-8BEN because, you know, there's people that I know that work for the federal government, military or otherwise, and there's a way for them to stop being, you know, deducted, getting the withholdings.
Yeah, I can go into that in just a moment.
Yep.
So what we do to handle the situation, you opted in. So the question is, how do you opt out, right? So if we go to my nation website, I moved all of our own personal, this is our coat of arms. I moved all of our resources and documents from One Stupid Fuck over to our nation's website because they're all basically underneath the nation, not under OSF, right? So we've got diplomatic license plates. We've got explanatory statement that you attach to the DS-11 passport application. And then here we have revocation of election to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purposes of determining your income tax liability. If you click on this link right here, it'll pop right up. And it has the coat of arms, and then it has what is it? It's an affidavit, revocation of election to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purpose of determining your income tax liability, and then also negotiable instrument endorsement clarification. And it's an entire document with definitions and everything, and you read through this and make sure you understand it. It's a pretty simple document. As long as you understand everything in this course, and then you also have to understand everything about negotiable instruments. So you have to watch some of my other videos to learn this part specifically. You get this notarized and you send it in, and what happens is this is how you eliminate your original election or naturalization that you did to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purposes of determining your income tax liability. Once you've completed this process by sending in this document, you revert back to non-resident alien status. And what does it say about non-resident aliens? It says non-resident aliens only have taxable income from sources within the District of Columbia. Well, it's within the United States, but the problem is that no one can define where that is. So even if you were making money from the District of Columbia, it's a very, very easy lawsuit. If the IRS comes after you and says, oh, you're a defense contractor, you need to pay, you would say, oh, okay. So you're saying that I have income from sources within the District of Columbia. Yes, that's correct. Great. So the first thing I'd have them do is define income, which that right there is like blowing out all 4 of their tires and smashing in their windshield all at the same time because they can't do it. The second thing you're going to have them do is you're going to have them define with metes and bounds or coordinates the exact delineating location of the state called United States. And that's like a missile launcher, all 4 missiles all hitting the front of the truck all at the same time, blowing the whole truck to smithereens.
Right. They can't do it.
They can't. It's physically impossible.
Yeah. Doesn't exist.
The only way you can get there is through naturalization.
Right. And I told you I'm naturalized now as under the Nation of Freedom Industrial Complex.
There you go. So
we're out.
So that is the taxation situation. I'm trying to figure out. There's something else you wanted me to talk about. I forget. What was it again? The WABEN. Yeah. So
I explained to people how people can actually stop. If they don't really want to figure out how to get out of U.S. citizenship, but they don't want to have withholdings, what can they do?
So the W-9 form, we got to start with that. This is the one. Yeah. This is what started everything. This is what when you filled this out, you elected to be treated as a U.S. resident for the purposes of determining your income tax liability. And the area in which you did that with is Part 2, subsection 3. I am a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person. And then right next to the signature box, you see here, signature of U.S. person.
Back away from the form.
That's you naturalized.
Right.
This is naturalization. And this is naturalization.
Right.
So you got to think to yourself, how do I not naturalize? The answer to that question is there's actually 2 different forms because remember, definition of person is an individual or an organization. So every time you do anything with anything, you're always going to see one form for individuals and one form for organizations. And it's the same with taxes. So with taxes, we have the W-8BEN, which is for individuals, and we have the W-8EXP, which is for organizations. Okay. So foreign organizations fill out the W-8EXP. You can see here what type of entity is this. Well, if it falls under 18 U.S.C. 11, which means that it's at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States, it would be a foreign government. International organization is found in 18 U.S.C. 112. Which talks about protection of foreign officials, official guests, and internationally protected persons, which has a lot to do with non-citizen nationals, diplomatic immunity, and that kind of thing. You have the definition of right here, for the purpose of this section, foreign government, foreign official, internationally protected person, international organization, national of the United States, and official guest shall have the same meaning as those provided in section 116B of this title. And you can go there and you can start looking at all the different definitions. International organization. So it has a definition here, right? And engaging in international affairs. So it'd be a person, of which is an organization. So I usually click that one as well. Foreign tax exempt organization. That one sounds good. I'll click that one. Foreign private foundation. That's usually pretty good. I'll click that one. It's not a foreign central bank. It's not a withholding qualified holder under section 1445. And it's not a government of a U.S. territory. So you can check those 4 boxes if you want. Name of organization could be something like the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. Country of incorporation, or it'd be Nation of Amnesty Coalition. Name of organization could also be, you could also do this even. You could do government of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, country of incorporation or organization, Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. What's the status? I have no idea. I would just, I don't know, international organization. That sounds good. Click that one. Foreign government. Foreign government. That one's a little bit tricky though, because it has a few different things here, but I might click that one, or I might just leave that. And then here we start getting into permanent address. Here I would put 123 Purple Monkey Lane. That would be in the city or town would be Pickle Taria. Country would be Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. Mailing address would be same as above. And then, well, that'd be Pickle-Taria, no zip, right? And you would put USTIN number if you have one, or foreign TIN number if you have one. If you don't, you would say something like NA for this. We wouldn't have one for this. NA. You can always get one, by the way. I actually have gotten TIN numbers, foreign TIN numbers, by typing in all of this information into an EIN request form and faxing it into the IRS, and they have issued me literal full-blown EIN numbers for filling out forms just like this.
Really? Wow.
123 Purple Monkey Lane, Pickle-Taria, Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, Government of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, Nation of the Amnesty Coalition, Foreign Government, Tax Exempt, Private Foundation. They will issue you EIN numbers. And then from there you go down and for a foreign government, and you can look at some of this stuff if you want, but an international organization, and what else do we have here? So you check box, one of these. I don't know. I would need to look into this more. I've never done one of these. I sent one of these one time to Google because I was trying to get my trust and they wouldn't do it. And I had to do it a different way, but this is how a foreign central bank of issue for a foreign tax exempt organization. This one I didn't have a checkbox on it. That's kind of cool. Maybe I would just do that. Maybe I'll just leave it empty. I don't know. And then you go down to the bottom, certification under penalty of perjury. I certify that I have the capacity to sign for the entity identified on line 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. And then you would just sign without prejudice, Brandon Joe Williams, and then Brandon Joe Williams, and then the date. And I am signing for a foreign government on behalf of, which would be the organization that'd be operating with a organization that has a withholding agent that reports to the IRS. Okay.
But does your Amnesty Coalition, does it actually have one of these on file?
No, it doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to. Okay.
You can get an EIN if you want or not. Doesn't matter. Makes no difference.
Okay.
This is the WABEN. This is for individuals. This is the one that you're going to be doing most likely for most people watching this. Identification of beneficial owner. Who's the person? Brandon Joe Williams. Country of citizenship. Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. Permanent address 123 Purple Monkey Lane. Now, what are they asking you? Most people have never asked this. Why do they always ask you for 2 addresses? One address is a residence address. One address is a mailing address. This one is where do you live or domicile or residence in terms of this is the one that places you in jurisdictions. Mailing address does not. So you can do 123 Purple Monkey Lane in Pickle-Taria. Country is Nation of the Amnesty Coalition. And then the mailing address can be your P.O. box in America, or what they think is America. Glendale, California. And then it says here, do they want the zip code? Yeah, I want the zip code. That's okay, because you can't live or domicile or residence in a P.O. box. United States. U.S. taxpayer identification number if required. Now people don't realize the tax ID, the Social Security number is an EIN number for the ens legis of your name in all capital letters. So if you're writing this out on behalf of that person, you would do your name in all capital letters. This is a different person now we're talking about. And then that person would be their TIN number or their EIN number you type in here, which is the Social Security number, which is not my Social Security number, by the way. I'm just making that up. So this is how you'd fill it out if you were doing it on behalf of the ens legis. If you were doing it on behalf of yourself, it would be NA, because you don't have a Social Security number, only the ens legis does. So that'd be Brandon Joe Williams. And then the date of birth. Now, this is also important too, because my date of birth is January 28th, 1986. But if I was writing it on behalf of the ens legis, the birth of the ens legis is the on your long form birth certificate. It's a date received by local health officer, which for me would be February 14th, 1986.
Right, that's when they registered your birth certificate.
And then you'd put the EIN number of the ens legis here, which I'm making up. And this is how you'd fill it out for the ens legis, right?
Right.
And then I certify that the beneficial owner is a resident of the nation of the Amnesty Coalition, with the meaning of the income tax treaty between, or whatever. You can put whatever you want in here. It doesn't need to be this. This is just how I do mine. It says here the beneficial owner is claiming the provisions of article and paragraph. You can do, covenant of an ambassador. You can I would just type that in here. It doesn't really matter. Of the treaty identified in line 1 to claim a 0% rate of withholding on specified type of income. The way I would write this is there is no income here. Income here, because I will be issued Federal Reserve notes, which are by definition a promissory note, not money. Explain the additional conditions in the article which makes them eligible for a rate of withholding. You would just say money is defined as
gold and silver.
Money is, it's not letting me really do this. Money is defined as gold, silver coins. And then I would actually list UCC 3-102. This article applies to negotiable instruments. It does not apply to money. I would probably put that in here, UCC 3-102, and I would go like that, and I would just say, these are negotiable, and then here I would say, and are by definition negotiable instruments, and then I would do it like that. Certification. I certify that I have the capacity to sign for the person indicated on line 1. Click that. And then without prejudice, Brandon Joe Williams, date, and print name of signer.
It's fantastic.
And you would issue this and the I-9. You would also fill out an I-9 form.
By the way, Mike Lindell from MyPillow, because I have a promo code AV for those of you that want to buy some MyPillow products. He took my W8BEN.
Oh, excellent. That's so good to hear.
So did the satellite phone store. And, I only do business with those that accept me for who I am and not what the government fiction wants me to be. And they're great. So.
Yeah, this is how we would do this. This is a weird one. I don't know what. I would just leave state empty and put, I don't know, like that, I guess. Date of birth. This one's for me, not for the ens legis. So it'd be 01/28/1986. NA. Email address. Telephone number. Non-citizen national of the United States. And foreign passport number and country of issuance. You could put your passport number in there. Very important.
Would
Didn't
you
talk about
use
this.
your Amnesty Coalition one, or would you use the US one that recognizes
You
you
could
as a
use the
non?
US one. You could use the, because look, this is very important list of acceptable documents. In order to work in
Right.
America, you have to establish identity and employment authorization, two different things.
Right.
List B is only identity. List C is only employment authorization. List A are documents that establish both. The first thing online on list A is U.S. passport or U.S. passport card. So all you need to do to get a U.S. passport is pledge allegiance to the United States.
Right.
You do not need to be a citizen. Doesn't matter where you domicile or residence. You may need to litigate to get that done if you're in another country. But I guarantee you can get that done. I've never seen anyone do that, but that's the direction that all this is heading, obviously.
Well, clearly with all the illegal aliens that are coming in and they're expediting their immigration status to that of eligible for work and voting.
Yeah. So if you list your passport number here, you would
Mhm.
sign here, put the date, and then document title 1 would be U.S. passport from list A. And they would sign here. Or no, I guess you would sign. I don't know who. Someone would sign here. I think maybe you would sign or whatever. And then you would just issue these first 2 pages. You could also print off this page, the 3rd page, and you could circle in big red. You would circle list A and then point number 1. You would just circle this like this just to help them out. Right.
Right.
And this you would, if you wanted to give this to your employer, you would give them one of these filled out like this, and you would give them one of these filled out like this. Now, I'm telling you right now, this is like literally on the same level as bombing or setting fire to the entire building. And I'm known for exaggerating things. I am not exaggerating.
Yeah.
HR and the legal team and everyone is going to go completely ape shit when you do this.
Yeah.
There's going to be lawyers and emails and people sweating. Sometimes they involve external law firms to come in and try to figure it out. And what's so funny is they'll never call the IRS. That's the funniest thing. No one ever calls the IRS, very rarely. But they'll involve every goddamn attorney and accountant from here to the end of the earth, and they'll just go bat shit crazy trying to figure out what the fuck did you just give them.
And the greatest thing is all they got to do is just pass it on to the IRS because it's the IRS's form. They don't need to understand it. They're just acting as the withholding agent for the IRS. So don't freak out. Just give it to the IRS and let them figure it out. If there's going to be a freak out, they'll send it back. But they know what to do with
the employer isn't supposed to give them the W-8BEN. They're supposed to actually fill out a different form called the W-8BEN-E form. Now, what's cool about that is employers are matching the payroll taxes. Some of the taxes that are being paid in payroll, the employer has to match those taxes, some of them. Once your employees file the W-8BEN and then you file the W-8BENE form, you no longer have to match any of those taxes either. So the employee saves money and the employer saves money. And it's actually more legal.
Yeah. It's great.
Because the thing is that you are not a U.S. citizen and you're not living in the District of Columbia. So the thing is that you start looking at the definition of employee. You start looking at the definition of business. Like, for example, if we go to that same definition section and we type in the word business, it's pretty shocking what you're going to find. The term I'll show you. This is almost too much to even be believed, so I'll show it to you. This is how they get you. Again, a U.S. citizen is someone who's an employee or officer of the government, and you can see that again in the definition of trade or business, which comes from 26 USC 7701 subsection A26. The term trade or business includes the performance of the functions of a public office.
Right.
So what's happening is that your business, if you are incorporated and you're a withholding agent, your business is essentially performing functions of public office in a foreign country. That's actually how the tax code views a business or corporation that's not located in the District of Columbia that is operating as a withholding agent. It's a foreign governmental cell, essentially.
Right. Let me
And
ask you this one last question, because you've been very generous with your time, Brandon, and I really do appreciate it. And I've enjoyed having the ability to interact with you on this because I've tell you, you've logged probably, I don't know, if I do 7 miles a day and I did 37 courses, what is the math on that? Couple 100 miles you and I've logged together in the morning.
yeah,
When I'm listening to these videos, right? So, and yeah, some of them are shorter than others. So maybe it's less than a cup. Maybe it's 200 miles, not 250, whatever. But, there is so much. They have made this so incredibly complex, but I equate them to the devil. And the devil has always got to give you a remedy. I mean, that's just part of it. And there is remedy in here for you to navigate this and not be trapped in their Gordian knot. You have outsmarted the devil and you have shown people legally and lawfully how to exit the system and not be trapped in the system, to get out of the matrix, to coin an expression from some great movies. So I know you deserve a huge round of applause, standing ovation, epic. There's been a
thank you.
lot of people that have even come before you, and I know David Straight, and I know Bobby Lawrence, and I know I've never met Anna von Reitz, but I know a lot of people in this movement. And when I started talking about it in 2021, people freaked out. It was like, oh my God, Steel Truth is talking about becoming a national, but at the end of the day, uh, I've people are coming around to it mostly because common law now is also having a high impact. And there's a lot of wins happening all over the country. And we're working very diligently with some common law folks on some pretty significant stuff you're going to start to hear about here. But they've scuttled the bridge and they've taken down government all over the place. Ixnade laws, change laws. No mainstream media talks about this, God forbid, because they don't want this out there in the public ethos, because then everybody would be doing it. And then what would they have left to do? These de facto corporate government people would have no jobs if we didn't need them anymore to send paperwork and be tangled up in their system. Think how much better our country could be if we weren't dealing with all that nonsense, right? All the time we're expending on this nonsense, we could actually be really creating incredible new technology and wealth for our country. And, people wouldn't be in, dire straits socioeconomically speaking. So for that, we owe you a debt of gratitude because you're helping people exit this entrapment.
Thank you.
And
Yeah,
I
and
think it's amazing.
thank you. And one of the main goals that we have as the nation of the Amnesty Coalition is the 14th Amendment in 1967 in a congressional record. I have the original pictures of the someone sent me another big huge diamond that someone sent me. I have pictures of that on the questions and answers section of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition page, as well as the Williams and Williams Law Firm.com page. In 1967, on the congressional record, the Congress said that the 14th Amendment was never ratified by enough of the states. And the 14th Amendment was never legally ratified. The 14th
Right.
Amendment is what birthed the police, the FBI, the CIA, the Federal Reserve, the U.S. citizen category, the public school system. I can go on and on and on. There's everything that's wrong in our entire society was birthed out of this racist, shitty amendment that was never supposed to be ratified and never was ratified, called the 14th Amendment.
Right.
But the 14th Amendment was acknowledged to be never ratified legally, and we were to actually fully integrate that into our legal system. The District of Columbia would vanish. The Federal Reserve would vanish. Federal Reserve notes would vanish. The entire police force would vanish. The FBI would vanish. The IRS would vanish. The CIA would vanish. The DMV would vanish. State of California would vanish. The state of Utah would vanish. The public school system would vanish. All that would be left is where we were at, let's say like circa 1850. So we would have the county recorder. We would have the sheriff's office. So all law enforcement could all go into the sheriff's office. We don't need
Right.
to get rid of law enforcement. It would just
No.
be the sheriff's office would go from this big to like this big overnight, right?
All those de facto cops would be de jure sheriffs and deputies.
Yes. So there'd be no such thing as a victimless crime. So what would happen is that if every single entity and every single law enforcement officer was all put into the sheriff's office, what would happen is that there'd be this gigantic, massive organization that would come down so hard on crime that crime literally overnight would cease to exist in the United States of America.
Right.
Because you would have the size of every single law enforcement agency in the country, and all these burly men are doing with all their guns and body armor and SWAT teams is going around, and somebody breaks into a jewelry store and there's 17 machine guns in their face within 4 minutes. So the thing is that all we would have is the sheriff's office, the county recorder. There'd be no corporations. There'd be no LLCs. There'd be no sole proprietorships. There'd be no reason to have an accountant. There'd be no lawyers. The courts would be very, very simple. It would be the way that the courts would operate is the same way they used to operate, where nowadays, if there's an indictment on somebody, they arrest the guy, they bring him in, they arraign him, and then he has to pay bail to get out. Mm-hmm. That's not the way it used to work. That's not the way it really works. The way it works is they have the indictment, and then they tell the guy that there is this indictment, and they bring him in and they might arraign him, but then they just release him. There is no bail. There's no nothing, because until the trial takes place, you're innocent until proven guilty. So you would still walk free until the trial was completed. And at the end of the trial, if you were found guilty, then at that point you would be taken into custody. Okay. So the whole system and would be totally unincorporated. All the commercial aspects of everything that we see won't exist anymore in the courts. So what happens is that United States and state of California, state of Mexico, these are all part of the same nation called the District of Columbia. Prior to 1871, what the way that the country was structured, and it still is technically underneath all the incorporated horseshit, right, is that you have all these separate nations: California, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Florida. And then you have another nation, which is the collectivity of all of these other nations. And the District of Columbia has they've always been the loser that was never invited into the club, right, which is probably why they got so pissed off. So the District of Columbia, while it is physically located in all of this, it's never been a part of any of this ever. Right. So you have this foreign country that's basically like in the middle of all of this, but it has nothing to do with any of it. And so what happens is that the 14th Amendment was obliterated. We would go back to the courts. You wouldn't really have, like, I don't know if you'd really have federal courts. I don't really know how they work, because the courts would all be state based. And what would happen is there wouldn't be this thing where, because right now we have the system where state law is typically very similar and comes from federal law, where in actuality it should be the other way around. The states is where all the power is at, and right, the states are the individual nations, right? The problem is that state of California and state of California are two totally different things in two totally different places and two totally different legal systems, right? Right. So California actually has two constitutions. It's two countries. It's two nations. The original unincorporated California's constitution comes from 1849. And I actually went down to the local library here because I couldn't find it anywhere online. And I scanned a copy and put it on my Williams & Williams law firm website if you want to see it. And then the incorporated version, called State of California, located in the District of Columbia, that Constitution was written in 1879, and then I believe that one was repealed in 1960. So you naturalize into the nation that you want to be a part of. Do you want to naturalize into the incorporated version called State of California that's located in the District of Columbia that doesn't have a constitution? Or do you want to naturalize into the unincorporated original nation state called California that has the constitution from 1849? The choice is yours. One is, if you go back to the 14th Amendment, one makes you a state citizen. And if you look in the, there's actually a whole nationality section on the Department of State, and they call someone who has naturalized into the original de jure state a Californian. So if they ask you, what is your citizenship or nationality? According to the Department of State, you would say, I am a Californian, or you could say a non-citizen Californian, or a non-citizen national of the United States, but a state citizen of California, making me a Californian. And that's using all of their terminology.
Right. Fascinating. This whole thing is just fascinating. And I really appreciate you dissecting it. I mean, it's just tremendous. I really want to encourage everybody to go to your website. I know I've been promoting, and it's on the ticker below, onestupidfuck.com. You have it in your moniker below your name. Where would you prefer people go there and sign up for your free course? You know, because you do have a contract killer course. It's great, and it teaches people how to kill all the contracts that you're in, so that you can dissolve your relationship with this, federal corporation known as the United States, and that you can stand as in the de jure now, as you're supposed to be, as God intended, not this, twisted nightmare that we find ourselves in. Where should people follow you?
Wherever they want. I'm on everything. OneStupidFuck.com is great because it has links to all my social medias, my YouTube. It's got a full book. So if you want to read rather than watch videos, there's the State National Theory page, which is all text-based. It's the size of a book. You can also download the first 6 versions of Black's Law Dictionary for free on the State National Theory page. I have a fan art and submissions page, which is just tons and tons and tons of fun pictures and success stories and people getting free cars and all sorts of good stuff. I have the free contract killer course page, which you can sign up for free. And then there's also links to the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition page, as well as the Williams & Williams Law Firm page, which will take you to those websites. There's all my podcasts. It takes me a while to go in there and put all the new ones in there, but that's like a whole list of all the podcasts I've done. Hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. State National Resources page, which is what you saw me kind of scrolling through earlier, which is just a gigantic potpourri grab bag of all sorts of good things to find.
It's great.
All sorts of definitions. You can find all sorts of different things. And then all of the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition resources and documents that are actually made by me from scratch are all located on the Nation of the Amnesty Coalition website under the resources and documents section. But I don't recommend you really send anything in until you really need to understand a lot of what the documents are saying. If you send in documents without understanding them and they're ever challenged at some point in the future, it's going to be really ugly if you don't understand what you're sending in.
100%. It took me, I went through the process, and before I actually got my passport, it was a year and a half because I took my time. I was traveling a lot for work. I still do, but I was traveling so much that it was hard for me to digest everything and really wrap my mind around what was happening. But once I got it, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And everything becomes so much more crystal clear. I'm looking through the lens of real comprehension now. And there's still a lot of nuance. You broke down a lot of the nuance tonight, which was fantastic. And that's because you clearly have an affinity for this stuff. You love it. And you're not afraid. And you shouldn't. I did a show last night about why you shouldn't be afraid of, litigation or being sued, right? It's really about just don't drop the ball. And like you say it so well, you're just throwing the ball back and forth with people. And the first person to drop the ball or have a shit fit loses because you just now, gave them what they wanted. So it's really interesting how I see you piecing this all together. And I love the fresh perspective. So I'm really grateful that I got the opportunity. Thank you, Jane Ruby, for introducing me to you because she said, you should check this guy out. He's doing what you've done and he's doing it in a different way. I'm like, let me look. And I became addicted.
I love it. Yeah, she's a lot of fun. I had a blast with her. She's a lot of fun.
Yeah, she's a great lady. Really smart lady too, by the way. Brilliant. In the medical space, she's my go-to for sure. So
beautiful.
Anyway, Brandon, Joe, you're awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me this evening. And it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me on. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, all right. And again, check him out. Go to onestupidfuck.com and you can find links to everything there. His social media. Follow him on X as well. We need to build his profile over on X so that we can get more people doing what we're all doing, which is setting ourselves free. Anyway, God bless you, man. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, everybody. I appreciate you sticking with me. This was a long show tonight, but it was so worth it. I think you're going to find a lot of gems. Go back, rewatch, screenshot, do your research, do your, start to understand the definitions of words. And one of the things Brandon always drove home for me was, get a dictionary. I've downloaded every one of the Black's Law dictionaries that are on his website. And the reason I have is I agree, you have to understand the period, the time period of the word, meaning the definition of the word from the time period in which the document was drafted, written, codified, whatever. You need to know how they were interpreting the words back then so that you can interpret what this actually means. And again, words are very powerful. They have meanings, and the pen is mightier than the sword. We don't need to go to guns in order to be free. We can free ourselves with the pen. To that, everybody, I hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I appreciate all of you. Have a blessed night. And I'm just going to leave you all hanging out here with a quick reminder of what I think is important for your safety going forward, because it is uncertain times. Have a good night, everybody. Hey guys, Ann Vandersteel with Steel News. Just want to bring you up to speed real quick and why you should be thinking about getting your family protected and ready with communications. This is breaking right now. Zero Hedge is putting this article out right now about F-16 fighter jets now on their way to Ukraine. Actually, this is actually being reported by the White House, if you can believe it. This insanity continues out from the Biden regime like crazy, but we got to be prepared for what's coming. And, clearly they're doing everything they possibly can to get us into World War III. That's why it's critical right now that we're thinking about comms for our family and our friends. I want to give a big shout out to sat123.com. Tina Blanco and the team over there, fantastic. They actually provided a lot of the influencers with our own books, connecting us to everybody else with their sat phones, because we all have sat123 phones. We all use them. I take mine every single time I'm out of the country because I know it's reliable. I can't always depend on my cell phone, but the satellite phones will always work no matter where I am. I just need to be outside so that my antenna can get a sat phone signal. And again, if we lose power, I have backup power, which has been also, made readily available at sat123.com. So don't waste any time. We're inching closer to something that's going to happen, whether it's full-blown World War III. It's nuclear, I doubt, but they're going to do something. And just as a point of reference, Ecuador most recently cut off visas to the Chinese. And if you recall some of the reporting we've done with Operation Burning Edge, Ecuador actually was a big conduit. A lot of the Chinese were able to get visas to come right through Ecuador. Well, they cut it off. And what did the Chinese do? They cut the power because they control the grid. And wouldn't you know, Huawei is controlling probably 90% of our 911 grid here in the United States. So if we have any issues, they can cut the 911 grid. And we've seen 911 go down in Florida and Massachusetts recently. So they're already testing the system and God knows what else. So be prepared with your backup power supplies and backup communications. Go to sat123.com. Don't let yourself or your family down. And Vandersteel, check in with you later.